Welcome in, everybody. Welcome to the stage. Vegas, welcome back to the panel. How's it
Hi,
going?
everyone. Thank you for having me on again. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's been a minute, Vegas. It's good to have you back.
Yeah, can't wait. Look forward to this
I
amazing panel. Thank you.
For sure. I hope you brought some good stock picks for us.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, this week was pretty good in the market, to be honest. Not as good as last week. Last week we killed it, but this week we still had a really high accuracy percentage. So 11 out of 15 picks look like they were green. So definitely not too shabby. Quick maths, 11 out of 15, that is 73%. So we were 73% accurate last week on the picks. So you do like to see it. It looks like one of the picks did not actually come through. I believe that is going to be TNA. I can't imagine, was TNA exactly flat over the past week, or are we just not pulling the data correctly? Let's take a look. Yeah, it was up 2.3%. So we actually had better. We had like 77% accuracy because TNH data is just not pulling, it seems, but it was up about 2.3%. So pretty nice to see that as well. Only 4 red picks on the past week. Now, a lot of these picks were slightly green. The red picks were slightly red. There's one bigger red pick. But overall, a really nice showing from this past week. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to kick right into it. We're going to start with our market sentiment. We're going to roll into our stock picking section. If you're up here in the space, I would very much appreciate if you're able to interact and share out the space. I do see uh, Jordan already sharing it. Shout out to Sean Trades. Appreciate those. We had a lot of people commenting. This is one of their favorite spaces of the week. So that's already been shared out. Even just a comment on the space goes a long way to letting your audience know you're in here. I don't know if people have seen this, but nowadays, unless you're the host, it often doesn't show on your profile that you're actually in a space, especially on desktop. So it can be hard for people to find it. With that being said, let's kick into it. Andrew, you ready to kick us off with some market sentiment?
Let's rock and roll. Yeah, so in terms of the market, what are we seeing? Well, the market, it's been on a really nice upward trajectory really over the past month. Right now I have in front of me all the indices. And this move that we've seen in the S&P 500 and especially the Magnificent 7 stocks, those big technology companies, it has been pretty incredible. So just over 18 price bars for the S&P 500, for example, were up over 11% on the index. So this is an absolutely unprecedented move. Pretty awesome stuff into the end of the year. But I'm not expecting every single week is going to be like some crazy week where, all the indices are moving up 5%. I think this is perhaps where it gets a little bit more difficult in the market. As I look at the Nasdaq and the S&P 500, they're still pretty far extended away from the short-term moving averages, like the 20-day simple moving average, for example. And even when you're in super bullish trends, it's just very normal to get pullbacks to that 20-day simple moving average. So in my view, I don't think the big opportunity is in those mega cap tech stocks for the next month into the new year. I'm really looking at the small cap stocks and some of the more unloved areas of the market for the bigger opportunities. So as I look right now at the IWM, the small cap ETF, the price action actually looks pretty good. We got a really nice rip higher and now we're consolidating sideways. So I'm looking for opportunities in those smaller stocks, and not really paying as much of attention to like the Microsofts, the Nvidias, those bigger names, because I think they've already put in some pretty fantastic moves. So with that being said, my picks for last week, a pretty similar theme for last week. I believe I went with China stocks as well as bonds. And I'm actually going to go with those same picks. So I'm going to go with the TMF, which is essentially the leveraged TLT ETF. That one's put in a pretty good move last week. And I think there's more room for these bonds to move to the upside. I even saw a stat today that showed, I believe it was for 5-year Treasury futures, there's a record short position. So I think a lot of investors, they're just short bonds across the curve. I think the bonds can do really well. So first pick for me is the TMF. And then the Chinese equities, really just staying away from those big mega cap US tech stocks. The Chinese equities, these are also putting in a pretty good sideways consolidation pattern. So this is a group that I'm looking for a continued upside into your end. So I'm going to go with the TMF, which is the leveraged treasury ETF. And I'm also going to go with CWEB once again, which is the leveraged China ETF. Thanks so much for having me on.
Absolutely. Yeah, TMF, really nice move this past week. You ended up with about 5.13%. Seems to be setting up pretty nicely. I mean, just kind of churning its way up. And I think you made the case for it really is right around the macro condition of the market. This has been so massively beaten down since 2021 when it was, I mean, even higher than that previously, right? It got all the way back up in COVID, I think, to $60, and it's trading at 5 now. So it's certainly come down from there. We're trading all the way down to 382, 384, maybe even lower than that. So yeah, starting to put its way back up in. But I like how you were making more of an overall case for TMF beyond just the technicals as they're stated here. And then CWeb, again, for those that are unfamiliar, taking a little bit of leverage and a little bit of China, I believe. And that is, we had a more flat week, I think. I think you did end up getting about 0.34% of a gain out of there, but mostly chop. So we'll see if it does make that move this next week. But again, like you're saying, going for those underappreciated, overlooked plays, see if they start poking their heads out of this market. For some that were on TNA, again, like that's up 27% this month. Curious to see where something like CWeb can go. Really interesting. Andrew, any other commentary on the market here?
I think only other commentary is we are in the holiday season, and the holiday season, the big decision makers, a lot of times they're off the desk and they're thinking more about vacation and family time. So yeah, I think if you just see the market and it's not really moving a whole lot, it's just going sideways and the daily range is very small. I think the best way to defend against that is just getting up off the screen and not obsessing over the price action. So I think during the holiday season, less is definitely more.
Absolutely. Great having you start us off here. Andrew, thank you very much. All right, Paper, I appreciate you making the time for the space. So let me get to you nice and early here for market analysis. Want to walk through what you're watching?
Ooh, appreciate you. You know what? I saw Vegas on, and I was like, "Oh, there's no way I can miss this one. I don't care what's going on." But happy to see the crew back in action. Um, it's just from a macro perspective. I think the market's it's a bullish market. That's what I can say. We've rallied up to a very difficult level. We got a ton of stuff in terms of economic data that we're going to get this week, so it's really hard to say in general. I think for me, like, my line in the sand is 452 for SPY. So as long as we're over that, I'm a bull. Um, there are a couple of things that look like they're a little teetering, but what I'd say too is, like, look, if you're a short side trader or you're looking for shorts, it's not been a fun market. You can't really ride the downside more than a couple of days, honestly, like, at most. And to that end, it's literally every dip's been bought. So I'm long. I'm ideally looking for longer, like, upside trades. I think VIX is at a point where it's low enough now where I'm actually getting excited about doing some sustainable upside trades here. Just starting to put my toe in the water. Still selling a lot of puts, to be fair, just because some of those things look like you'd mentioned, like IWM. To me, I think it's a bit of a consolidation right now, but I'm extremely bulled up on that one, at least through Q2, like Q1 of next year. But again, for example, that's a much longer term trade. So what's the best way to actually go about trading that? Is it leverage? Maybe, maybe not. Is it selling downside puts? Probably. Or is it some kind of spread situation while volatility continues to contract until we start getting those larger moves? I think it's a light week in terms of volume typically. We do have a couple catalysts, like I said, but I think there's still some good spots in the market. I'm waiting for a couple trades to really give me that hard trigger, or dip a little bit more, if you will, to some of my, like, I need to pound the table and buy these things. But they're coming. Like, they're really close. on some of the names that I'm watching. And yeah, I think we're good for another week. I'm not expecting a whole lot, to be honest, just because of the time of year. But looks like Santa's coming to play this year. That's what I can see so far. So I'm in for the Santa rally, man. That's what I'll say for sure.
All right. I'm going to do a whole space about a potential Santa rally tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern, by the way. So discussing if it's coming, signs of it, past history, stuff like that, for those that are curious. And then we actually are going to probably talk a little bit about it on one of these evening spaces too. Good stuff. Papers, you need to give your picks now? Can you
No,
stick
no,
around? What do you
I
want to
can
do? I
stick
know.
around for a bit.
Okay, sounds good. Well, let's return to the queen a little bit over here. Vegas is back on stage with us. Vegas, I'd love to hear a couple thoughts here on market sentiment before we get to the stock picks.
Okay. Well, first of all, thanks to my crew here, and Jordan, Paper Gains, Andrew, Michael, Jaguar, nice to see you as well. Nate, nice to see you, and Nick, and TSDR, I saw you there too. So thank you for the warm welcome, and let's talk about what's happening with the market. My thoughts right now in the market is that the Nasdaq and the Dow, S&P. There was some good action with the cyber sales. Retail sector's been in the spotlight, and they had a record Black Friday for online sales. And we could see here that consumer discretionary ended among the top gainers, but consumer staples kind of seesawed and then closed lower. So this week, the focus, in my opinion, will be on a host of Federal Reserve speakers, a lot of economic data, and most notably Thursday's personal income and spending report, which will have the Fed's preferred inflation gauge, the core personal consumption expenditures price index. You could see there'll be a lot of action happen later this week. There was a sizable drop in Treasury bond yields across the yield curve, and today around we saw Shopify gap up pre-market, record action. Amazon, I posted earlier in the day on my feed here that they had like 1,000 sales per hour or per minute. I don't know if it was per hour or per minute. I gotta go back and look. But yeah, per 1,000 items per second. Oh my god, more than a minute, less than a minute. 1,000 items per second. So every second, 1,000 items are being purchased online on Amazon. Doesn't surprise me. Very good deals on Amazon, especially with Cyber Monday or Black Friday. There's some really good deals out there. I bought myself a Ninja blender, so hopefully that'll work. Hello, people tell me to get Vitamix. So those are my thoughts on the market. Looking for some continuation here. Looking for a nice rally into year end. We're heading into December very soon, so month end sometimes tends to have some selling pressure, but I really look forward to seeing a rally in the year end for sure. I want to see Santa come to town and sprinkle us with some gifts and some nice money. So you want me to give my picks, or what else would you like me to comment on?
No, that's perfect for now. We're going to circle back
Okay.
around and do the picks in a few
Okay.
minutes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Vegas. Great to have you on stage with us. Good to hear from you. All right, let's go over to Michael Naus.
Yeah, probably gonna repeat what a lot of people said here. Now, first of all, like before people get too excited about Santa, remember it doesn't start until December 22nd. So we are still technically almost a month away from the seasonality part of the Santa Claus rally. So don't get too excited. But what I'm looking at here on the market is essentially just the break of the September highs. And now we're, 3 days in a row just chopping above them. This is, in my opinion, best case scenario. We got a little overbought there, like we were mentioning, and we talked about this last week that overbought can either resolve through price or through time. And so far, it looks like we're just resolving through time, which means the market's neither going up or down. It's just kind of chopping around. A lot of, especially new traders, get a little bit confused and kind of think that, okay, you have to resolve through price. So if you're overbought, you have to come down, and if you're oversold, you have to bounce. And that's absolutely not true. At some point, you either need to rest or bounce. And so far, it looks like we're resting. So as long as we are not trying to fill that CPI gap we had kind of from 440 was that 445, as long as we're nowhere near that zone, I don't see a reason in the world to get bearish. So I'm just going to continue to look under the hood for plays. I do kind of agree with Andrew's point where might be a little bit of rotation going on. Might be that some of the big tech names are a little overdone. Might be time to start looking at some names that are breaking out of bases but haven't quite gone yet, which is great for us traders. It sucks for the people who are just kind of buy and hold, but for us who are in and out, there looks like it's going to be a little bit of a good opportunity. Now, that being said, if we do start to close that gap between 440 and 425, that's when I'm going to start to get a little bit defensive. But I've been long now since end of October, early November, and I haven't really sold much. I'm just looking to get more long on names if things break out.
Perfect. Thank you, Michael. Now, Nick, coming over to you.
Yep, very similar to Michael, probably as always. The one thing that's getting me a little bit more cautious, and not to say that we're going to go into a corrective phase like we did about 3 months ago, anything like that, but ZS just reported earnings. They're down a little bit. That software or the software security group with like CrowdStrike, ZS, PANW has been a leading group. If that comes down, then it might just be time for like a week to pause. And that's completely fine. We've had such a great November so far. So as boring as it is, I'm not looking to do too much this week. If setups form, I'll take them. CRS was the one that I took today that worked really well, kind of right out of the gate. So if we get really tight price action, and you could still trade those swing trades, I'll still put on those trades, but I really want to get my stops to break even, given how later in the cycle we are before any corrections come. So I think there's still opportunity on the upside, but I'm going to be a little bit more aggressive, like getting my risk tightened up right away on any new trades.
Sounds good, Nick. Okay, let's come on over to Jaguar. Testing, Jaguar. If you need a second, no worries. Okay, we'll circle back around at Jaguar. Jordan, do you want to jump into the mix?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I'm feeling very similar to the panel. We're all pretty much on the same page, but this is SPY right now. I mean, we haven't moved this past week very much. All these doji candles on the daily, and everybody's waiting for a pullback, me included, but I think we all forget if we look left, we're fighting with the September high right now, right? And there's one of two reasons why we're slowing down on SPY. It's either because buyers are getting tired and sellers are going to want to step in, or we're holding these levels and just resting, kind of like Michael Nance was saying. And to me, this doesn't look very bearish. It looks more like resting to me, right on top of that September high. So I'm really just watching for that to hold. I would love a little bit more of a significant dip, but just seeing that, I don't know if we're going to get it, right? So I'm really just watching that September high level. And like Michael now said, anywhere near that CPI gap is really not good for the bulls, right? We don't want to see us get anywhere near there. So it would make sense to kind of hold this September high area, maybe get a slight dip below it and test this daily 9 EMA that I have at 451 would make sense to me. But I'm still feeling very bullish on this market until the market's going to tell me different, right? Till the charts tell me any different. But a lot of people are seeing these doji candles, me included, and you think it's slowing down. And when you think slowing down, you immediately want to think, oh, sellers are going to come in, right? But that's not always the case. Sometimes we're just resting. So that's what I think is going on right now. Of course, I think this week and next week is going to really tell us more. I mean, we got a lot of data this week, but not a whole lot of volume in the market. So that's interesting. It's going to create some interesting price action. So should have fun on Friday with Pal, but yeah, I'm still feeling good about this market. I just think we're holding up, resting on the September high for now.
Sounds good, Jordan. Thank you. Okay, Nate, coming over to yourself.
Yeah, appreciate it. Hope everybody's doing well and had a good Monday. Similar sentiment. I think that we're going to see SPY and the Qs pull back a little bit here before just continuing higher. So I won't repeat a lot of what everybody said because I think great points have already been made there and good observations. One thing I have been keeping an eye on is the energy sector. Can't really make heads or tails of where it's going. At one point, it looked like it was just ready to keel over and make its way lower and continue lower below the 8250 level, and instead it's bounced hard off of 8250 for as far as the XLE ETF is concerned, that tracks the energy sector, and now it's pushing back above 84, closed today at 84.65, and there's some names in the sector that are starting to show some life. So I was about to cut a few positions I had there, and instead I'm hanging on to see what happens here this week, and in particular, and as we head into the last month of the year, if energy can make a move higher here, I think it can make a move pretty quickly. There's a nice big gap up between this 84 level and basically 87.70 for XLE, with not a lot of resistance, and so you see that kind of set up in a lot of the names in the sector. So something I'm looking at, along with the energy names, or excuse me, the technology names that have been making solid, strong moves higher. So a nice little mix between the two, I think, might serve well towards the end of the year. It's what I'm looking at, and overall, remaining cautiously optimistic and bullish towards the end of the year here. Just think we'll get a little bit of a pullback before we do make that move higher.
Perfect. Thank you, Nate. Okay, I think we had everybody on the panel for now. We are going to get to Jaguar. He's having some issues with a voice. So once he's back around, we'll get going with him. We are going to start off with this past week's winner. We have a pretty clear winner from this past week. So a little drum roll here. Let me get a... and a... All right, that's enough. Let's get it up for our winner from this past week, which is going to be Mr. Michael Naus. A very, very nice job by Michael Naus, killing it. Took 2 picks, both of them green. Kaba was actually not the bigger pick. That one ended up 3.77%, but TAL, that one ended up going up 11.22%. So you got to trust the algo sometimes, I suppose. Tall Education Group, they had a huge day on Friday. Stock jumped maybe 14% or something like that on Friday. So nice breakout move there to new 52-week highs for them, and nice win by Michael Naus. Michael, what do you have for us this coming week?
Yeah, I was actually tempted to put TAL back on because it is back on the algo. And just so people know, I always just say this because I think I'm weird in my trading style, is that you'll hear a lot of people, they'll have some sort of fundamental reason that they're looking at the stock and then use technicals for the setup or entry. I replace that fundamental reason with algorithms. So I back test and come up with algorithms so at least I can prove over a 40-year plus cycle that picking these stocks in and of themselves will help me beat the market. And then from there, I use my technical analysis on top. So quite often when I'm talking about these, I have no idea what these companies do. So make sure you're doing your own due diligence there if that's something that's important to you. Because for me, it's just as simple as hey, that came up on the algo and I scanned through the chart and it looks good. So that's my reason for taking these. So the first one is one that I'm sure we've all heard and probably a lot of us been paying attention to recently. FYI, they're all in the little chat purple bubble there below if you want to take a look at the pictures and all of that. But Affirm, and I zoomed out to a weekly chart on Affirm, AFRM, and massive rounded base, breaking out of that over the last few days. Really strong day today, and a 20% short float. So, I give this rant all the time as well. Nobody cared that Bed Bath and Beyond's float was short like 30 or 40% when it's going bankrupt and the company's in a downtrend because those shorts are winning. So they have no fear and no reason to cover. When you get something like an Affirm with a heavy short float that looks like it may be breaking out of a really long bottom, that to me is more of a potential for a short squeeze because those shorts are actually going to start to potentially cover, right? If you were short Affirm anywhere through its kind of meteoric collapse here, from I think it was 150 plus it got to, you probably have a stop somewhere in this area to capture some of that money. So it makes sense to me that we could be getting a little bit of a break out of this level. So 20% short float, just a big rounded bottom and a nice breakout today. And I think this got to number 3 on the relative strength algo. So it's looking pretty strong in this one. Just pay attention to the gap that we had today. Make sure that you have some sort of risk management. It is a little bit overdone going into tomorrow on this breakout. It was up like 12% today. But I'm certainly not going to bet against a move like that. For me, I'd probably use the low of like today's candle for a stop. I know we just doing week to week on the contest. I just like to kind of look at a stock. Now, this next one I know absolutely nothing about. So we'll learn about this here together, but is a BBIO, BioBridge Pharmaceutical Company. So this another one really high ranked on the relative strength algo. Nice gap happened in July here. Gap from about that $18 and ran up to about 35. Pulled back and it's just kind of been settling in right here. Another pretty heavy short float on this one. Not as crazy as a firm, but still pretty good with a 14% short float. What I really liked about this chart and what really stood out is just, you're talking from basically the beginning of November. So about a month here, we're putting in this really nice, tight sideways consolidation in BBIO. So I'm just looking to see if we can break out. The way I will trade this is a break and a hold over this $30 area, which is the top end of the consolidation for this month, and then put a stop, pretty tight at like 28 or 29. So that's the one thing I love about it is the risk is super, super tight. And if we do end up testing those highs from before that pretty big gap, that's sitting around 36 or 38. So it looks like if we're going to test those highs, it's a potential 4-to-1 risk reward. And I'm a pretty simple guy, and that's kind of all I look for. Now, this thing had some bad news or something. It was trading as high as 70 back in 2021, fell as low as 7, and then it started to push higher. So anyone who's followed me for any length of time knows I love stocks that double in some respect and then start putting in some consolidation because everyone who is short is down probably 100% of their money, and it just shows up on a lot of scanners and a lot of people screening the market for looking for stuff that's up a lot. So this one's more than doubled. It's almost tripled from that low point, and now it's sitting again around this $30, which is a pretty nice resistance. So that's BBIO and AFRM.
Yeah, Farm definitely was running today. Pulled back a little bit from those highs, but I don't know if anybody else saw this, but buy now, pay later for Black Friday was up about 45%. Also known as buy now, default later, buy now, bankruptcy later, buy now, downfall of America. But like we were talking about this morning, if you are bearish on the economy and the current state of society, then longing buy now, pay later certainly seems to be the pair trade there. It has really performed well these last couple of weeks, really going back to October 26th. It's up about 87%, maybe about 85%. That's roughly a month and a day. I mean, when you look at it, right? Just absolutely has been cruising up here. And this is one that does it in staggered steps. You can see it did this back in August, came back down, went back up. So let's see if it's able to continue this one. But sometimes, I mean, you go back to August, this one put in, gosh, 10 green days in a row, something like that. So you can certainly see it run it. And like I said, a lot of people using its services, especially over the past week. The other one, like you mentioned, I don't know it either. BBIO, Bridge Biopharma. Looking at it, seems like something that would show up on an algo scanner. It had a big gap up back on July 17th. Wasn't on earnings, interestingly enough. It actually has kind of descended since those earnings. Had another earnings since November 2nd and kind of just chopped sideways, potentially breaking out of a ascending triangle here. We'll see what happens. I don't really know much about this one either, so kind of taking the algo at its word, just like you did. With that being said, it does look like a nicer setup when you pull out onto the year. Uh, Michael Mouse, any other commentary for yourself?
And no, I should really hammer home that second one is a lower float biopharma. So, make sure you're trading it accordingly. You see, if you go back in the chart, you see that can induce some gnarly gap downs. So just make sure every time I see, pharmaceutical or biopharma, I reduce my size a little bit because the moves in both direction can be wild. So I want to make sure that if it gaps down too hard, it doesn't hurt me too much, and then if it gaps up, it's still just a nice little gain. So just wanted to hammer that home a little bit. It's $5 billion market cap, so it's not the tiniest thing in the world, but do be careful.
Perfect. Thank you, Michael Naus. Okay, let's keep it rolling up here. Paper gains. I'll make sure we get to you nice and early so nobody steals your picks. What do we got this week?
Oh, dude, are we ready? I guess so. I can't.
We're
Is
ready.
that? Do you hear something?
I hear the jingle bells.
It's Christmas time, guys. All I want,
Santa's coming.
all I want is my TNA, man. That's all I can say. Is it still available?
Of course
Oh,
it
let's
is. Came too
go.
early.
So truth be told, I don't know that it's really ready. But what I would say is, like, I'm buying this guy. Well, I'm actually selling some puts in IWM here, but I like this, honestly. I like this in terms of like the catch-up trade. I like this spot. It hasn't broken out yet. If you're trading, I think it's pretty clear. It's like this basically 180 level that we have to close above, but it's battling with its 200-day right now. If you pull back on this one, it's a really high and tight flag for probably the last 2 weeks. So hopefully by this time next week, I think we get a little bit of a breakout. So I'm going to go ahead and take the first long TNA on this guy for that 200-day break and base over that 180 level. So hopefully we catch like another 5% day. That would be amazing, and hopefully it doesn't go too fast before tomorrow. But I think midweek this week we're going to have it's like Wednesday, Thursday. So Wednesday we get GDP, Thursday we get PCE. So those are the two big data points from an economic perspective. I think those are going to run us actually. And then Powell's probably going to come in and try to slow it down a little bit if he can. But I like IWM, very high, tight consolidation. And I think it was Michael earlier who talked about the CPI gap. So one thing to note on these kind of like we do have these big fair value gaps to the downside. What's true is, look, if we're not trading towards them or not trending towards them, I'm not really thinking about them. I don't think that they're going to come into play just yet. To me, we retested already that 175 level and held. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and pick this one long. So TNA to the long side. That's leverage IWM. And I'm kind of torn on the second one since I like these leverage tickers. Do we have Jaguar here? Yikes. I think I'm going to save him. Are you going to go GDXU, Jag? He might.
No, I'm not. So you can.
Yeah, I'm kind of torn. So I'm up in the air, Gov. I'm going to give this one to you. So it's either going to be OILU, the leverage energy ETF for I think it's like leverage XOP against the November 30th OPEC Plus meeting as the catalyst, or GDXU for the breakout. GDXU works best if equities stall and the Dixies continue to run. So it's more of a I guess it would be more of a hedge place. But you pick for me. Which one's your favorite of those two?
I like GDXU. Ooh, wow. Did you guys hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah, are you good?
Bro, I swear to God, people in Puerto Rico just shoot off fireworks all fucking day.
Dude,
I have
Yeah, that
no
sounded
idea
crazy.
why.
I believe it.
Bro, it sounds like explosions around, and then you just see like fireworks going off in the sky, but they literally just shoot them off at random all the time. It's one of the weirder things about living here, I will say.
Oh man.
Paper, I am a big GDXU guy,
All right.
so I'm leaning that
Yeah,
way.
let's roll with that then. So GDXU to the upside, that's 3x leverage GDX. I think so. What I'd say is, like, this is going to be kind of it's a bit more of a hedge play. Like if equities catch a bid, GDX is probably not going to be the best one to be in. It's probably just going to be down to flat. But in that case, IWM should take us away for the win regardless. So and if IWM kind of stalls and the sector stalls, GDX and gold should to me, like as long as the Dixie continues down, should continue the grind higher. But yeah, I like those two for sure.
All right, TNA, GDXU. I mean, let's see what happens with TNA because everybody's getting on the TNA train.
Oh, I'm not leaving, man.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Let's see what happens there. GDXU kind of coiling up pretty nicely actually here.
Yeah, they
Move
both
from
are. I mean, you
22.
got to look at gold futures too. So that's really going to be the one. Gold at just it's closing over 2,000. Look, this is like the third or fourth time to the party here. So I don't want to get too over my skis on a gold bug type trade, but the gold chart looks great. It looks like it's ready to rock and roll, but it's look, there's no earnings in gold. So if equities catch a bid, they're going to be more attractive over gold, but they can both rally at the same time. I'd say that. But if I were to pick like what's my highest conviction short, it would be the dollar short. So I mean that goes best with gold and everything else, just long assets. But yeah, that's my picks, man. I'll take them.
Perfect. Markdown, GDXU long, TNA long. Some nice setups here. I like that GDXU one a lot actually right here. Maybe a double bottom. Who knows?
Yeah, well,
All
I mean,
right.
it's always tough buying things at resistance, right? So it's got to
True.
break out,
It's true.
right?
Easier when it's in a competition.
True story.
And it's leveraged. Gotta love it. All right. Shout out to Paper for making the space. Okay, let's keep it rolling over here. We're gonna go to our second place winner from last week after Michael Naus, which was wow. All right, he's not here, but shout out to Stock Market News, who did actually have faded everybody with NVDQ, which actually ended up getting him some good downside there, even though SQQQ was down. So you know what? Shout out to Evan, got the pick in. Let's go over to third place, which is going to be Trader Nate. It's about a 1% return on the week.
Get out. I'll take a bronze. Make the podium. This week, actually gonna go look at the Bitcoin space and Marathon Digital. So ticker MARA. I think Bitcoin hanging around 37K here is looking like it might want to break out. I don't own any crypto, never quite got on that train, but I do like to trade this ticker in particular. It just got out of this range it's traded in previously and was kind of in for a short bit here. Broke above 1064. It's above its 50-day moving average and just broke above this anchored VWAP from its prior high. So I think by broke above, it's barely closed above it. So we need to see a nice move higher. But if it does get moving, I think it runs pretty quickly to the upside. So that's my first long MARA. And then I don't think has anybody gone short. I don't think anybody's gone short yet. So I'll get on that one. I'll go short Walgreens. So WBA.
Dude, I was looking at the chart today. It's the ugliest thing I've ever seen.
It's
Insane.
horrible.
Insane. I'm like, we were talking. I don't know if you were there, God, but I was like, is Walgreens going out of business, man? Because like this thing looks like it is. It's crazy.
Yeah, this is. I'm so glad to hear you say that you too appreciate the ugliness of this chart because
Yeah.
it's strictly technicals here.
It
If
puts
you
Moderna
flip
to
the chart,
shame.
it looks like the bullish setup we all like on IWM. If you
No,
just
except there's
flip
no
it.
consolidation. It's just going down.
Yeah, I'm bullish negative WBA and short WBA. How's that? So yeah, those are my two picks, Wolf. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Walgreens down 50% on the past year right now, down 43% year to date. Retail seems to be consolidating some of those bigger names. We all know that Rite Aid kind of got screwed. I think there's just a lot of problems for a stock like Walgreens that's causing it to falter at this point. Their revenue growth not good, about less than 5%, year over year at this point. The worst part for them is their EBITDA growth. EBITDA growth forward looking was negative 2.5%. Year over year was negative 23%. So they've got some problems, to be quite honest. Even their free cash flow uh, per share and all those other areas. I mean, operating cash flow growth year over year was down 42%. So they're having a lot of problems. I could suppose you could say the valuation's not so bad now that the stock's down here, but I think that's all you could say for it. Certainly an F on the growth scale. Looks like a great breakdown play. And really, for anyone that caught this back in August, you're up a nice 33% there. And it's going with the rest of that sector. On the other side of things, Mara, we've been trading a lot of Mara lately. It's been getting bids even when Bitcoin itself is not quite running, or sometimes it goes for a couple days after. Seems to be setting up pretty nicely. It's moved from around $7 to $11 pretty rapidly. Reminder, this thing can pump. Last time it was sitting at about $10 and made the move up to 11 and a half. It then ran up to 19.5. So that was a quick move there. So yeah, shout out Mike Alfred. I see him in the audience. We do love to see some Mara on the screen here. And, Mikey, if you're in our spaces in the morning, he loves trading it. So Mara long, WBA short. Thank you, Trader Nate, for those. Let's keep it rolling up here around the panel. Let's get on over to Nick.
All right. I think I chose this last week, but I'm going to go again with Shark Ninja. It's a stock that IPO just kind of popped out of its base, pulled back a little bit today, but nice shakeout under the 10-day EMA and then closed right back up at the 5-day. It does have a dividend coming up, so I'm not quite sure how that's going to play into pricing on our Google sheet. So maybe something to look into. But either way, nice little shakeout today. I assume that we'll see continued strength. I know Vegas just said that she's going to get a Shark Ninja blender. And like I said last week, I've got 2 or 3 of their products as well. So we'll see if this can get going. And then I'm actually going to go short on my second pick and just go back to the well shorting SEDG, solar stock that had been basing out for about 3 years. Big break to the downside from 230 down to like 210, 200. And from there, just completely collapsed down to about $63. From there, nice little bounce up. But if you look at the TAN, the solar ETF, that's one that's already back below the 10, the 20-day EMAs. Week closed today. And looking for kind of further weakness on that if we get sideways stalling action out of the indexes. So I go solar because that's the weakest group, and then I go to one of the weakest stocks in that group, SEDG, below the 20-day, below the 10 and the 5, and not looking very strong by any means.
Yeah, if anyone that's been monitoring ENPH, this has pretty much run a very similar course, except it's done it much quicker to the downside. SCDG, a bit of a fall from grace. This was trading back in July at $285 a share, before recently going as low as 57, and right now trading at right around 76, down about 74% in a bit over 4 months, and seems to be potentially having an opportunity to short again here because it did pop back up from 56 to 87, but maybe that's short lived, right? So keeping our eye on SCDG to the downside. If you're looking at the actual fundamentals of it real quick, I will say those are not as bad as I expected. The momentum is pretty much the rough way. I'm getting a quant warning of high risk of performing badly. It's down 74% on the year, 72.6% year to date. It seems like the growth is not necessarily the worst thing that I've ever seen from a fundamental perspective, but nobody wants anything to do with this sector, it would appear. Although, shout out, they got an insider buy recently, which was interesting as well. So, yeah, definitely, the chart, the technicals indicate certainly an opportunity for a short there. And then Shark Ninja, you did take that one last week. It was actually slightly up, I believe, on the week. I think you were kind of our fourth place winner. Still just kind of trending upwards. Like you said, maybe they get a nice bump from Cyber Monday and all these sales. They were probably one of the type of things that Amazon was really featuring on their front cover. You got any other comments there, Nick?
No, you don't have to get too aggressive this week. I think the big money and the quick money has been made. So now it's just about finding your tight risk buy points. And if you want to keep trading, keep trading. Otherwise, just taking a little bit of a break and kind of reviewing the past 4 weeks is going to give you a lot more feedback and just more knowledge for next time we get into a situation like that where you can really make a lot of money in a short period of time.
Perfect. Okay, thank you, Nick. All right, Vegas, it's come time. Excited to bring it over to you and hear your stock picks.
Okay, thank you. And you know what? You guys are picking great stocks because I really liked Mara as well. It was actually going to be one of my picks, but you guys took it. But that's okay. More than that, we'll always come up with good ideas. So I'm going to talk about, I would like to put in Roku as one of my picks. You could see here that Roku today had a beautiful day. As soon as it broke that $100, we've been watching this here, up over 8% today. And Roku had a beautiful day. It's got really good opportunity here for this to go towards, I'm going to say this has room to 150. So definitely got to watch Roku because the Roku channel keeps increasing its shares of TV viewership. And obviously, you know, the advertising market can't really control everything, but it can give one of the best streaming experiences possible. And I think this has a lot of room to more upside. And remember, they announced back in August their expanded partnership with NBCU's Universal Global Distribution Studio. And, you know, they're going to launch other channels as well. And so this is a good expansion for Roku. And this beautiful chart, you cannot, I don't see, this is just beautiful chart. Just like when I kiss it, it's so nice. So this has room, I think, at least to go to 110 next. So right now you can see we're around, where did we close here on Roku? 103.56 here. And sorry, 103, yeah, 103.25 right now. But looks really nice. Room to, I think, 110. If that breaks, we have a lot of room to go much higher. I will say probably first 105.77, and then I think we're going to go towards 110. But definitely have Roku on your watch because that chart is beautiful and there's nothing to not like about it. So definitely, I didn't see Walgreens looks pretty ugly. And by the way, Roku had a 52-week closing high today as well. So when you see stuff like that, you know, they talk about how trade 52-week highs, good strength in the stocks. And so this is one of them that has a lot of good strength. So keep a watch on Roku. And then, of course, since we're talking about streaming TV, of course, I got to pick my second one, which is going to be Netflix. And one of the things I noticed here on Netflix has a really nice cup and handle on Netflix. And Netflix looks really good. 52-week closing high on Friday. And you can see here even today, this beautiful cup and handle is shaping up. So this is really shaping up to do really well in the coming sessions. A lot of people are looking for this stock to go much higher. Can this be eventually like a $700 stock? There's a lot of talk about that. It's kind of a lifestyle company, no distractions. And, you know, people like it. I mean, people are bored. They watch Netflix. I mean, I like watching Netflix show. Like I'm hooked on this one show right now. I forget the name of it right now, but I'm really liking it. They have like 39 episodes. And so I'm watching it because there's a lot of action in the show. So I will say that Netflix I prefer over a company like Disney. I just find that Netflix has a lot of variety. And, you know, in the recent earnings report, it was quite clear why they're an industry leader because they have good content. Viewers are getting reconnected with Netflix. You know, it's reasonably priced, even though they did do the crackdown on the passwords. I mean, people are still getting a subscription to Netflix, and they did add 8.8 million new accounts in the recent period. So they did have very good performance in the past quarter. And the memberships did grow 9%. So to me, that shows a lot of strength in the company, especially they have a lot of original content, licensed content. So Netflix has a lot of opportunity here to go much higher. And so I think that this is one to keep watching for a continuation. So let's see where Netflix can go. But I wouldn't be surprised. Let me see this chart that I have here for Netflix. I'd like to see this go towards, 482.70. And then if we can get past that, We could see probably 485, and then we can start going towards 490, and then 500. So I'm going to say 482.70, and then 485 next on Netflix. So looking for it to have a continuation. I definitely do not want to see this get below 471.42, which for me is the 3 EMA. Some people will have a lower level, like 445, 87, because that's the 8 EMA. But for me, 471 is a good level here to hold. So I wouldn't want it to go much lower. So those are my two picks: Netflix and Roku, the streaming networks. So take a look at those beautiful charts. I'll actually post the chart in my feed so you can have a look at them. But definitely those are my two picks. And that's it. Those are the two of them. I'm not in that at the moment. I was going to trade Roku today, missed it, missed my opportunity, but I will keep watching it. Because there's room for this to still go much higher. So if I still go in, I'll just take a smaller size. So those are my two picks: Netflix and Roku.
Yeah, Roku was an absolute ripper today. This was one of the biggest plays from this morning. We were on Spaces with Mikey, and he called out Roku $100 calls. They went up 260% today, and they don't expire until the 1st. So certainly some potential for these. So I'm keeping my eye on Roku, absolutely. I haven't looked at Netflix in a little. Wow, it's still going. Yeah, this thing has just been staircase stepping its way up since back on October 18th. Kind of hit the reversal right off of earnings, and it's pushed 40% in a week and a half pretty much since then. Just an absolute monster move here by Netflix. It's actually looking for new 52-week highs as well. So I think if you get those, you get the real push through 500. So that's a $20 move right there that could potentially happen this week. Really interesting calls there by Vegas. And then I saw the Roku daily chart, but the Roku, as you spin out a little bit, it's equally as impressive. It's not like today was its one big push. This thing's up 83% in the past month. Just an absolute monster. And that also came off of earnings. So, the market really liking those earnings. Maybe there's some Black Friday stuff that happened for them. Maybe they ran some sales and stuff too. But yeah, absolutely streaming, getting a huge, huge bid right here. Great stuff there from Vegas. Returning to the panel. We love to see it. All right, both of those are written down and marked. Any other comments for yourself, Vegas?
No, I just want to say continue trading. And, if remember, this is to me like right now, the market's kind of like a buy the dip opportunity. So even though I see some stocks looking really good and then there's pullbacks, nothing's going to go straight up. So if there's any pullbacks, you're not in the trade, just wait for the entries and just get a good entry, because obviously when you get a better entry and then the stock goes, you will make more money. So don't be chasing anything. Just wait for them to come, wait for the setups to come to you. Like I said, I didn't even get into Roku today because it just took off, but I'll be watching for a pullback and get myself an entry. So, if I have to go smaller, then I go smaller. I can always add at a later time, but I'm definitely not going to be chasing, because that's how you lose money. So be patient, let the trades come your way. And remember, there's always something running in the market. So just be patient. It's always a setup.
Perfect. Thank you, Vegas. All right, Jaguar, is your sound working now?
Yes, it is. Thanks
All
for
right.
the patience.
Yeah, no, perfect. I left plenty of time here, and then I know, Jordan, we're going to hit you as well for picks. But Jaguar, I'd love to hear both the market sentiment as well as the picks here, and we got plenty of time for it.
Yeah, as far as the market sentiment is concerned, um, we are in this period in the year when it's early December, late November, early December, and continues all the way until the end of the year, when there's a lot of tax loss selling that tends to happen, which means people look at their portfolio and they simply say, okay, I'm down 20, 30, 40% on this position. I'm just going to get rid of it, take the loss, and then I'll reevaluate 30 days later in January sometime. And so the groups and the areas in the market that are already down a lot, they just get overshot to the downside. They just weaken even more and more and more. And so, and the ones that are up, they perform even better. And I think you're going to see a lot of this in the coming weeks. Some of this may have already started, and I think you're going to see this in price section, and I think it's going to get more and more aggressive. You saw a lot of this in 2022 as well, where tech was the weakest group last year. So you saw them sell off all the way up until the year end, right? A lot of those stocks. And then they just immediately bounced back once January came. So, having said that, not trying to be different than the group, because I fully acknowledge and I respect the bullish opinions on the, about the market conditions and Russell and so many different things that are discussed here. But I'm purely from a tactical standpoint, I'm looking at two stocks that are acting very weak. And I think they could potentially just keep getting destroyed all the way into the year end. And so both of my picks are going to be short, having that background in place. The first one is going to be reporting earnings later this week. And that stock is the cybersecurity name Okta, symbol OKTA, Okta as a short. Now, in this particular case, this stock just performs horribly compared to everything else. And there's a very specific reason as to why. The company will be reporting earnings on November 29th after market close, and I'm wondering if the stock will just blow up even more. There's a massive support on the daily as well as on the weekly scale at $65 per share. And then after that, there's a big air pocket on the stock all the way down to $50 per share. This has become the worst of breed cybersecurity stocks, because how can you have confidence on a cybersecurity company that is getting hacked itself? In case if you remember the story of what happened about a month ago, there was a note out from Stifel Research giving an earnings preview for this company, and they mentioned that, reminder, Okta was involved in the MGM and Caesars hack in the month of September, as well as a breach of Okta's customer support system unrelated to MGM and Caesars also that happened in the month of September and October. And so one has to be curious if this has had any kind of impact, all these attacks, on the actual deal pipelines that the company has, as well as new logos, the close rates, the customers' willingness to expand with Okta, and overall brand trust that they have on Okta. Meanwhile, friendly reminder that the last time when the company posted earnings, they guided for 13% growth rate year over year in their RPO business, which would be the seventh consecutive quarter of deceleration. So even before these hacks happened, this was because company was already struggling with consistent decelerating trend. Also, I would point out that the Okta's relationship with the channel that has been weaker in recent years. For example, if you look at where the biggest, strongest cybersecurity spending is taking place, you'll find them in firewall. You'll find them in endpoint checkpoint solutions and many other kind of things. None of those products or none of those are the areas where Okta actually has any significant amount of presence anyway. And so, given this backdrop, in my opinion, it should not be surprising to see Okta's continued weaker channel checks, and the VAR survey has also been reflecting that. And so I can't imagine company coming out with the earnings call on November 29 and somehow raising guidance after what happened in September and October. I think there's a decent chance they're going to take down the numbers. People are going to observe yet another quarter of decelerating trends in RPO. And as a result, there's a risk here that it could lose that $65 support on the chart. And if it does, there's room for this stock to fall all the way to $50 per share. Compounding that technical view is going to be, as I said earlier, the simple logic. People are going to look at this and say, I'm down on this position. It's not working. It's lacking terribly both the cybersecurity and the NASDAQ space. It's time to blow this out of the portfolio, just like people do towards the year end when they go on a tax loss selling spree. So my first short is Okta going into earnings. And
Yeah, Monative did mention to me that they weren't responsible for the problem in the MGM hack,
No,
but
it was they lost some keys, so it's like a physical thing.
okay, gotcha. But I think you make a good case with all the earnings numbers and other pieces there. And they often the funny thing about them is they seem to go back and forth on their earnings, up down, up down. So if that continues, this one will be down. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, really interesting case outlined for Okta. And interesting that you're going short with both Jaguar. I think you'd be the only one tonight to do that. But cool. I will mark down Okta as the first. Would love to hear the second.
Yeah, and the second one, going back to the now, this is where I was having to be frank with you. I was juggling between three different plays, and all three of them are, in my opinion, are short. But I was trying to, because this is a weekly competition, and I wanted to bring something that can fit into the logic that I explained earlier with text loss selling, and the momentum is simply not there. And so, it was difficult decision, but I'm gonna go with very simple short BioNTech, BNTX, which is the COVID vaccine maker. Now, one may wonder why not short Moderna. Honestly, might as well go ahead and short Moderna too. I think both of these stocks potentially could see accelerating selling pressure from here all the way up until year end. There's no business here for either of these stocks to be up here. I've said this repeatedly all year long, more downside, more downside. And I think that's coming. And I think now it's a prime time for people to just blow these things out of the portfolio. Why BNTX then? Well, in this particular case, purely technically speaking, with the bearish engulfing candle that we saw in this stock today, I think it sets up as a bigger, let's just call it higher beta name, the way technically it has been reacting than Moderna. But I think both of these go lower. It's difficult for me to pick which one will outperform the other. But I think that the lower highs and lower lows that we have seen all year, you're going to see more of that in the coming week. So short BNTX, BioNTech, which is the COVID vaccine maker.
Can we just throw Pfizer in the bucket too? Because look at that bearish engulfing. Oh, that sucks. It makes me sad every time
I'm
I
gonna
look at
short
it.
all the COVID stocks. I'm gonna short them all.
Yeah, they all seem to be coming to the downside, that's for sure. That Moderna, I did notice, was down again today. I'm pretty sure another, well, it was down more, I guess, earlier in the day. It came back a little bit, kind of end of day, it seems. Uh, but still sitting at 77.5. And then, like the other one that you mentioned, BNTX, BioNTech, that is sitting at $96. This one's had decently rough year as well, I would say. It was trading at about 152, so it's down about a third. So definitely something to continue to look at as well at the moment. Really
So
interesting there.
Wolfie, he gave
Jaguar
us Jag gave us the green light. Short the pop mode on Myrna. We're go.
Yep.
all day.
Go for
Yeah,
lunch.
these are the kind of names that could just be text loss selling targets, basically. I mean, that's the crust of this. And I think for the remainder of this year, I may continue to go in this direction, just finding, pockets in the market where most likely people are just going to be throwing them out of their portfolio. And, COVID vaccine makers are definitely one of them. Um, Quick question, Wolf or anybody else. Do we know the pricing of Cybertruck yet?
No, I don't believe so. I think
But
that might be revealed
Thursday, I
at the
think we have
event.
the event.
Okay, so Thursday we'll find this out, and that's when people can buy a Cybertruck too, right? That's when it becomes available.
I remember when they announced Cybertruck a while back, they were taking deposits. So a lot of
Yeah.
people I know put deposits, not a lot of money. I think you could deposit like $200
Yeah.
or 200, but I don't know what the price is of the truck. I'm not interested in
Okay,
that truck. It's
the
so big.
reason why I'm asking, and I briefly discussed this in the prior spaces with Stock Talk, there is that um, you know, if you look purely technically speaking at Tesla daily chart, we had that big gap down when it reported earnings on high volume. And then it retraced on lighter volume with the rest of the market. And it has now perfectly filled the gap. And it's just sitting there, right? It's unable to continue its momentum after filling that gap. Also, on the last 6 month chart, it has been making lower highs and lower lows with the downtrending line coming down right up here around $240 per share. And so, my purely technically speaking, this event, this launch, particularly the question around the pricing of these cyber trucks, they better be good, and they better attract the investors' interest, because I wonder whether after Thursday you're going to see beginning of next leg lower in Tesla. Otherwise, the way chart is setting up, that's my concern. So this is why, like I said earlier, I was tossing between different shorts that could potentially be in play within the next week or so. Tesla was one of them, but I decided against it. I'm like, I'm not going to do it until the event is over and I get to see what the pricing is. So for that reason and only that reason, I'm not bringing it to this weekly top picks.
Amazing. Thank you, Jaguar. Okay, perfect. We are going to go to our last stock picker for the evening, and that is yourself, Jordan.
All right. Well, Jaguar doesn't want anything to do with Tesla. I've picked it 4 times. I think we're gonna make it a fifth though.
I
Even
think you
though
won a couple times though, didn't you? Doing that?
Oh yeah. We had some good moves from it, but I totally respect what Jaguar's saying there. But I just while he was talking, I looked back and he's right. We're fighting in this gap. We're not really seeing continuation. But then I look left, and I know I've said it a million times, but I go back to May of this year, May 17th, in that area, and the same thing was happening here. We couldn't get continuation through that gap. We were chopping, and then out of nowhere, right, the rally came. So I'm gonna go for it. Fifth week in a row, TSLT long. And then I love the IWM setup that paper has. So I'm gonna go short TZA, the inverse of TNA. And that'll do it for my picks. I love that if you just look at IWM, that daily or 4 hour, super constructive looking. Like paper said, I don't know if it's gonna break out this week. It definitely could, but it's very choppy and just getting real tight with the price action. So really just waiting for a trigger to the upside for it to break out and go on that one. But looking good, looking good. But yeah, Tesla, I find it super interesting. I can't wait to see what's gonna happen with this whole area and the Cybertruck thing and how that's going to affect the price action. I'm hoping it's good because I definitely want to do good in the competition and want the long term to keep scaling upwards. But we'll have to see.
All right, perfect.
It's one of those things that if you get the direction right going into this event in Tesla,
It could be
long or
good.
short, it could destroy all the other picks from everyone else, right?
We'll see, Jag. We'll see, baby.
I love it, guys. So, for everybody that wants to see it, I just wanted to mention this. You can actually get all the picks now. I just went ahead and I posted them to my timeline. I tagged all the speakers. So you get the full range. I've been loving the activity that we've seen from the audience on this post over the past few weeks. Go in there and just comment your favorite, or if you have two favorites, comment them. We'd love to see at the end of the week how it works out. If you have negative things to say, at least back them up with a thesis, right? We're happy to hear all the feedback from y'all. But especially if you have any that you like, definitely hop in there and give it a show. So would love to see that from y'all. And a big thank you across the panel to all of our investors and traders that we've had up here tonight. Thank you to Jordan for coasting the return of Vegas on here, Jaguar, Paper, Nate, Andrew, Michael Nouse, and of course, Nick Drendel. Always a pleasure having on our Monday Night Money crew. I've got another space coming up here, I think Jag and some others are staying on for. We're going to be talking uranium. Uranium's been a really interesting area of this market. We often talk Kamiko and some of the other areas, and that's like CCJ for those that are unfamiliar. These are near all-time highs. I mean, these stocks have been awesome, right? UU. And tonight we're going to be talking another way that people can get exposure to uranium. So, going to be chatting with the team over at Uranium 308. They are tokenizing $1 billion of uranium, making it more accessible for investors to get access to. So, with that being said, I hope everyone enjoyed the stock picks. Go ahead and comment on my timeline. Check them out if you haven't already. And let's roll into the talk about uranium because this is the perfect time to have this discussion. I literally just checked and CCJ was like right off all-time highs. So let's roll into it. I believe we have Alex up here. Alex, how's it going?
Very well. Pleasure to be here.
Perfect. Good to have you on. I dropped you a coast if you want to grab it. Let's get right into this. I would like to get an introduction of yourself first, why you're fascinated with uranium and how this idea came about of taking uranium, tokenizing $1 billion worth of it, and then let's take it from there. But a little bit of introduction and kind of the overview of what fascinates you about uranium is a great place to start.
Yeah, definitely. So I started myself in crypto in about 2013, doing my economics degree, went right into the traditional financial space after I graduated. worked on a few different resource investment banking deals, and kept most of the things I did in crypto pseudonymous or anonymous over the years. Despite that, quite a few friends in the space, when RWA started to pick up a few years ago, reached out for help with projects. These were things like tokenizing gold, silver, a few others. With these, you already had Pax Gold out there. You had a few other projects working in that space, and really what they were doing were targeting these commodities with already very mature, deep and liquid spot and futures markets. So I personally have always had a more trading interest in more niche metals, so things like tin, lithium, graphite, things that are relatively more underfollowed than the major precious metals, and at the same time lend themselves to the dynamics in, I think, a changing world. So whether that's battery metals, nuclear energy, EVs, things of that nature. So I started working on the uranium trade about 2.5 years ago myself personally, and quickly realized that there didn't exist a spot or a futures market like there did for all other commodities. If one looks up the uranium spot price either on TradingView or on Numerico, really what you have is a price reference quoted once daily that isn't actually where bids and asks meet. It is just a price amalgamation from where private market contracts are clearing. And if you look it up on COMEX, you'll see that there is zero open interest, zero volume, et cetera. So the way that industry really works is it's primarily trading done very opaque, not on an open book, and done directly between utilities, enrichers, and the end producers of the uranium itself. So you had a very interesting market structure that made it very ripe for tokenization. And outside of that, the backdrop for uranium itself is a backdrop of a supply-demand imbalance whereby the world consumes about 190 million pounds of uranium per year, only produces about 150, and excuse me, that's in the backdrop of an expanding demand side of the equation where you see pretty much the entire world right now shifting pro-nuclear ex-Germany, with massive reactor build-outs planned both in China, in pockets of Europe, and generally Southeast Asia as well. So I think that's been expressed by the price of the commodity today, where it's been one of the best performing energy metals. I think it's up between 55 to 60% spot. Obviously, the equities are doing their job as well. But yeah, that's a quick background on myself, sort of quick high level on the uranium market and why it's an interesting place to be.
Okay, perfect. So let's talk a little bit about what you're doing inside of it. What's uranium 308, and what is the use case for actually tokenizing uranium?
So the use case is it creates the first vehicle that is structured to actually track the spot price of uranium, but be actively traded. So instead of having that once daily reference price, you have a vehicle where ideally you can express, either a bullish or a bearish view on the price of uranium and actually be able to trade it directly. So that's the use case for it. At the same time, what we're doing is currently we've got an inbound interest from two large uranium traders to do physical settlement orders. So we've got, a lot of work that we've been doing for the last 8 months building this with the team. But at the same time, the feedback we've gotten from the traditional space is that the actual price of uranium is likely to head higher from here. What you see is RFPs, or requests for proposals, issued out broadly to the actual industry. So it's just a reflection on how opaque that market is and how the trade doesn't really exist on a proper bid ask market or actively.
I have two questions on that, and then by the way, guys, I have some questions here just to kind of give everybody some information, and then we've got some brilliant minds on the panel, which I'll definitely turn to get their thoughts. I know there's some uranium investors up here. One thing is you mentioned the team. I'd love to hear more on the team's background, who's actually building this. And then number two is going to be kind of what's actually causing the current uranium market to cause the price of uranium to rise so dramatically like we've seen in all these traditional stocks. But you can start with the team and then go into that.
Yeah, so on our team, basically what we've done was we put our heads down to start building this thing ourselves about 8-9 months ago. Pretty much operated completely in stealth for 7 or so of those months before we sort of rolled out to the world and said, hey, look, we've built this, we're going live with it. So the team consists of myself, 3 or 4 folks from the traditional investment space. We've got Cody, I hate Cody on Twitter, who's heading up our marketing, Ryan Gorman, who unfortunately couldn't be with us tonight because a family member of his caught a bad illness, so he's taking care of them right now. And then on the technical side, what we have is our Eng team that actually comes from the heads of some of the largest centralized exchanges in the world, who were kind of looking at what they wanted to do next, and at the same time have been a phenomenal assistance to the actual team to bring this thing to market. So it's kind of like a hybrid between deep crypto guys on the technical side and traditional finance guys, as well as some good skilled, experienced marketing and PR folks.
Okay, perfect. So let's talk about uranium markets. Something's going on in uranium markets, right? Anybody that looks at it can see we're rising. We've actually talked about this pretty extensively, especially with Jaguar who's up here. In your opinion, what's happening in the uranium markets that's causing the price of uranium to rise so dramatically?
Well, I think one, you have this embedded supply-demand imbalance. You have an asset whereby the investment capital cost of creating reactors and operating reactors is such that you're basically going to be a pretty inelastic buyer of uranium as a utility or enricher, because at the end of the day, you need to keep your reactors running. I think when you look at the history of the uranium market up to the window of time between kind of 2004 to 2007 or so, in 2008, you had the price of spot go from about $20-$25 to about $140-$145, and that was actually in the backdrop of a market with a supply glut, not a supply shortfall like you have now. I think what you're starting to see is a lot of utilities and institutions around the world, including governments, kind of start to scramble to try to lock in production. When the price fell back in that kind of 07-08 run time frame, what you had was basically Fukushima in Japan occurred, which created a huge sort of splash of cold water on the space, which led to a lot of underinvestment in the actual capacity of producers around the world. And now when you see kind of the sentiment shift quite rapidly to pro-nuclear is arguably one of the most efficient, cleanest, and most economic ways to actually achieve a net zero carbon future while keeping energy requirements stable across the world and ideally increasing them. What you have is just frankly a backdrop that I don't think that industry has seen in recent decades. So right now, when you look at the price of spot, how it's acted year to date, I think indications that we see in the actual uranium market privately from how RFPs are being issued out, the size of requests for product is kind of indicative that that shortfall is likely to get worse, especially as more and more government money is being allocated for grants. More and more private institutions are focused on reactor builds, things of that nature. So to put it simply, I think you just have a supply-demand imbalance that's kind of aggressively getting wider.
Fantastic. Quick note, people are DMing me asking me what the ticker is. So again, this is tokenized, so you're basically able to get access to it through the crypto markets. It's ticker U. It's just U paired with USDC. If you go through their page, I actually pinned this to the top of the space, but if you go through their page, and again, it's just ticker U and traded on the Ethereum chain, it looks like. You can go through, obviously, this is a discussion. I think there's a lot of interest in uranium right now. I encourage everybody to do their due diligence. Don't buy anything because you hear about it on a space, but really take the opportunity to learn. You can see just how well a lot of the stocks have been doing in this area. I know that there's a lot of people that don't necessarily trade those stocks, want to find some way to get exposure. This is definitely something that you can look into. And obviously a reputable team, people that know the background on this, coming from traditional markets, a lot of those good pieces. Let me just get one or two more questions in, and then I will go to some of these hands that are on here. I want to talk a little bit about the goals here. What's the goal of the project? What's the roadmap for Uranium 308?
So the goal is to create what initially was, something I wanted, which was a mechanism through which I could keep my assets on chain and express bullish views on trade ideas that were typically found in the traditional or the TradFi finance space. So that was the initial goal of this, and it's kind of evolved from that point to the degree of interest we've gotten from different industry participants in terms of what it would mean to have an actual transparent platform to execute orders for uranium, express views, lock in pricing, similar to what you have in traditional markets. So it's evolved to that point from initially what was an idea spawned as a means to express a bullish view on uranium to providing with the participation of a few different industry partners that will likely be announcing in the next several weeks, providing that mechanism through which to provide efficient price discovery in uranium and actually allow for a proper bid-ask market to operate for, what we think is going to be a commodity with an extremely strong fundamental backdrop for quite a while ahead of it here.
Got it. Yep, that makes sense to me. And then my last question here, and then we'll go through. There's obviously a lot of interest in the uranium markets, but what do you think are the current issues in the uranium markets that need to be dealt with?
So I think an interesting application of tokenization, if you think through how something works in both the RWA space, kind of blended with how perp futures work, is the traceability and actually being able to, identify transactions on chain and have locked in pricing. I think with uranium right now, the biggest issue with the space generally is that you don't have efficient pricing, you don't have a transparent market, and also you have a situation where, I think something that's talked about in maybe some more niche uranium circles, but the top 3 uranium producing jurisdictions in the world are Kazakhstan, Canada, and Namibia. Kazakhstan with a wide margin ahead of the actual size of production of Canada, and that market's kind of controlled by Russia and China. So you have a dynamic, obviously, where, with geopolitical tensions increasing, I think that adds to the impetus of the Western world and sort of all nations trying to figure out where they can lock in their supply from, and at the same time be comfortable knowing that, they're not going to have a geopolitical situation that leads to a massive shortfall in the overall global uranium stock. And I think that's probably the biggest issue facing the industry right now.
Perfect. By the way, so we'll go around. Happy to take some questions. If you're also someone on the panel that's a thought leader in the space and wants to share some views on uranium here, that would be great as well. Let's start out with Dave here.
Appreciate it, Wolf. Thanks, obviously, guys, for coming on here. I'm so curious about this because I'm such a novice when it comes to uranium. Obviously, that I was going to ask the last question that Wolf was asking in regards to what some of like the regulatory issues are, like some of like the safety issues. But I feel like you kind of addressed those there, like from a legal and ethical perspective, right? Because I guess maybe it's just because I'm a novice, right? But if the average investor isn't that tech savvy and like getting them to understand blockchain and tokenization, right? Who is the actual like? Is the actual is there like do you think there will be an actual market for tokenized uranium at this point? I guess just given that I guess it's not I don't want to say in an official capacity, but it doesn't trade on like I guess a major exchange. Is that the case?
Yeah, that's the case. It's a market opaque, basically controlled by several of the largest producers in the world who manage to either enrichment facilities or utilities or storage. So I think for us, what's been very interesting is actually being the response from the traditional institutional uranium trading world. So we've had discussions with a few groups there, kind of walk through what this project means, how we're intending to build it, and at the same time getting fantastic advice, guidance from them as well, because I think to provide a product like this done properly provides a ton of value to a lot of the actual institutional uranium traders in the world. So that's been a really nice thing to see with it. So we've got news that'll be coming out over sort of the next 1 to 2 months in that respect. And yeah, I think it's kind of a mix of providing the right product structured properly with a diverse bunch of partners behind it, such that you have that institutional adoption where at the same time you're having discussions with these folks, doing things how they want to see it, and at the same time add things, change things, constantly grow the project in that direction to make it, a proper product that they're comfortable using. As most of these participants, they're not crypto native. They're used to how their market works, and it's bumpy, it's inefficient, and there's much cleaner ways to do it. And tokenization is one of the best routes of that, in my opinion.
So, quick follow up to that, right? So, obviously, by tokenizing something, because I actually had a great discussion this past Saturday about bringing real world assets on chain. If you're going to tokenize it, right, the token that you're going to get, right? How would that, I guess, if we're talking about tokenizing it, what is that going to represent, and how would that be different than the way people are currently interacting with the uranium markets now? Like, because I feel like that would make it ripe for almost like just a couple of players to kind of monopolize or kind of corner a market, I guess, in a sense. No?
Well, I think, since the old times with what happened in the silver market historically, right? You always have market participants who are trying to sort of corner commodity or niche markets. I don't think that's the case with this. I think, there's a lot of education we'll be adding to the site as well in the current market structure, but an example for how it works right now, and how tight that market is an RFP went out earlier today for 300,000 pounds of uranium. That is a swap at a conversion facility, which means it's going directly to an enricher. And that is basically a cross between two accounts. So somebody who's got the asset at an enricher and somebody who wants to take delivery of it at that enricher. So the team's actually in process right now with both setting up enrichment accounts through us directly, as well as through our different resource partners, such that we're able to basically operate as a transparent layer to that industry. And I think outside of that, right, like building this from what it was to begin with, it's kind of a unique thing that's come out there. So like I said, we've been heads down working on it. I don't think there's the potential for a market cornering in that aspect. But that's not to say, people don't try as they've tried throughout history in any sort of niche market.
Appreciate it. I got some more questions, but let's go to Drew, and then you guys can come back around to me. But this is super interesting.
Pop in, Drew.
Yeah, appreciate it. I got a ton of questions. It's definitely interesting. I mean, I was even reading an article today about, they're putting things that people probably wouldn't even fathom on to put it on chain just to prove the provability, right, on chain provenance, those kind of things. So from a uranium perspective, and I'm definitely not a uranium expert, but from like a blockchain or tokenization perspective, are you guys how are you reaching holders? I see you have 108 holders. Like, how are you trying to onboard people? Is this traditional Web2 with just like emails? Are there groups? Because this is a specific niche. What does that outreach look like for y'all?
I think it's kind of interesting. And if Cody's listening in, I'm sure he could chime in as well, because it's kind of a strange one, right? Like the resources space has a lot of tribalism similar to crypto. At the same time, what you have is a dynamic where you've got one industry on one side of the spectrum. That's the resources space, and that industry obviously is a quite a far gulf removed from Web3, crypto, DeFi generally, and the inverse is the same, where understanding the resources space, spending time in that sector, working on trades, understanding how different commodities markets work, their different market structure characteristics, the supply-demand imbalances and dynamics they face, who the actual major players are in that industry that move the needle or for that specific commodity. I think you have this very wide gulf. So, we've only gone live recently, and we've just been keeping things very sort of cool, calm, and collected as we try to scale up here with a few of the larger institutional players in the space. Take things, from basically a development standpoint first. So it's something, I guess, for Cody and a few of the other guys. If you got any other questions on that front, feel free to hit the contact at uranium308 email, or DM Cody or Ryan Gorman on Twitter direct. But it's honestly something that we've received the feedback from the uranium space where, if built properly, this has a lot of product market fit for something that would provide a lot of value to the space. I think outside of that, you still do have some overlap in crypto and the resources space. I kind of sometimes compare gold bugs in the traditional finance space to like the Bitcoin maximalists. So I think there's a lot of, it's an interesting marriage of the two worlds. So I think, I don't really have a firm answer for like the marketing techniques for it, other than building it from the outset for what market participants want to see you actually move size in the institutional market, and at the same time make it as understandable and digestible for the crypto space. Because for us, we had a lot of inbound interest from just our network and the team's network in crypto, who knew nothing about the uranium space, knew nothing about the commodities world, and then they looked at it and they just said, what are you talking about, tokenized uranium? And then they started going down the actual uranium wormhole, learning about different resource companies out there, learning about how the actual market works, and all of a sudden becoming much more interested in net zero energy, how uranium actually functions, small modular reactors, all this kind of stuff. So our job is to just kind of like educate as much as possible both sides of that that gap, and at the same time, just keeping our heads down and working.
Awesome. So I just got two more questions. Is there anything like specific in your contract that it does something special to where it adjusts for the price of uranium? I see there's only 5% of the circulating supply. Is that because I see one token equals 1 pound of uranium? Is that just how much uranium you guys have, and you add more as you acquire more, or
So we have more under a bench of forward offtake contracts, and the way that peg really works is that it's kind of interesting because you can't build a direct pricing oracle like you could with other commodities because you don't have a consistent price feed release. So what we've sort of done with our market makers is built out a relatively unique structure. One of the guys on our team who heads up our market making relationships, he headed up one of the OTC and institutional desks for one of the largest Southeast Asian exchanges. So we've got a deep bench of technical talent where we were able to work with our market making partners, pretty unique structures such that the price oscillates around what that daily reference price is. And like I said, just doing things carefully from our outset, where I think credibility for a project like this are derived from the partners they attract, in addition to them doing what they're supposed to be doing, which is tracking that daily reference price, however, still oscillating around it, providing some volatility as you would have for something that's actually being live traded instead of quoted once daily.
awesome? That's interesting. Yeah, I'll have to take a look into that more. Yeah, because I think that is the challenge for most of these traditional things. You can obviously feed a chain like Oracle in there and get a direct price feed. When you have something like this, obviously there's various sources with various different prices, and it needs to be as real time as possible. Interesting. And so from a last question perspective, so from like a Web3, obviously it sounds like you don't want to renounce the contract maybe because you have some special things in there. Is the contract owned by a multi-sig? Is there any reason why the LP isn't locked? Like the kind of traditional Web3 tokenomics kind of things? Can I find the tokenomics anywhere?
Yeah, you can find the tokenomics on our white paper. Always feel free to ping the team as well. Like, more than happy to jump on an extensive call to really dive into the technical details of it. But the contract is not renounced because what we need to be able to allow is actual mint and burn functions where, say, someone comes in, and we've been in some pretty extensive discussions for delivery sourced from different resource providers. We need to be able to burn the pro rata amount of uranium that's actually delivered for an end utility. So that's why that function is there. And at the same time, the LP needs to be dynamic as well. And like I said, feel free to ping the team. We can have a much, much longer call with, a good chunk of our team, and we can go through all the details.
Perfect. Jaguar, I know this is a little bit of crossing worlds for you, but I know uranium's right up your alley. Would love to hear your thoughts here.
Yeah, hi guys. Thanks for having me here. So, as you know, Wolf, I was buying CCJ when it was trading at $26 per share earlier this year in March, and I've held that position, occasionally trimming, but then occasionally also adding. And now the stock is at 45. I'm mostly an equity guy. I don't really trade cryptos at all. I have not traded cryptos in about 2 years. But my question really is about the state of the industry, high level. At the heart of the uranium rally is basically geopolitics. And when you think about this, we have, according to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, or EIA, the U.S. imports about 14% of uranium, of its uranium total consumption from Russia. Now, this percentage has varied between 10% and 30%. I think the most recent data that I saw was about 22%. And there's still not a ban on Russian or imports of uranium from Russia. There has been a lot of discussions in Congress about this, but they never passed a law. We banned oil, we banned many other things that come from Russia, but not uranium. So my question really is, do you believe that there's going to be an import ban coming at some point from Russia? And then secondly, if there is coming, then you take a look at CCJ earnings, for example, and you try to figure out exactly whether we can domestically source enough uranium for the utility companies, and companies like CCJ are running at max capacity. There is none. and it takes a long time to bring the supply to the market. Maybe this is one of the key reasons why there's still no import ban from Russia. So just any thoughts on that as to why, what could that do to the uranium price, and how long can this rally still continue?
So, I think to your point, what's an interesting detail with that RFP I quoted earlier for the 300,000 pounds that's split up between either the either one 100,000 pound chunk, 200,000 pounds, or the whole three. But the specifications on that RFP were actually that the origin is US and EU legal, non-Russian. So I think that you're going to start to see kind of pressure be applied from both sides of the market, both the supply side as well as the demand side in terms of actual sourcing. I don't want to prognosticate too much on the geopolitical situation, but I think with any niche commodity, everybody loves volatility, but volatility is a two-edged sword. So when you have things like the uranium market in sort of '04 to '07, '08, that two-edged volatility can work both ways. So I mean, obviously, heaven forbid, there's a large geopolitical event that leads to something like Fukushima again. However, I think why everybody loves these kind of commodity markets is they lend themselves to these both supply-demand imbalances, geopolitical situations where if you play them right, you can do phenomenally well. So I'm not sure exactly how things will shake out with the Russian situation, because again, with Russia and China's sort of control of the Kazakh market, definitely lends itself to a little bit shaky ground as it relates to the Western nations having a secure, stable source of supply over the coming years. And obviously, that would likely be expressed as an equilibrium at a much higher price point. So we'll see what happens. But I'm interested as well in your take on the current state of the actual uranium market. How much further you think it has to go, considering what you saw with the backdrop of that market in kind of '04, '07, '08 time relative to today.
Jag, were you free to speak on that?
Yeah, can you guys hear me? I just got in my car, so my Bluetooth picked up, but I just want to make sure you can hear me, right?
Yeah, we
Yeah,
got
we
you.
got you now.
Okay, so on the follow-up question, or more like a comment, the way I see this entire industry currently playing out is how in the past 2 years we have seen some other parts within the commodity industry play out, where for example, if you look at the price of crude oil, and it was starting to make its way up and up in a significant way, well before even the war started. December 2021, January 2022, all the way up until leading to the event when the invasion of Ukraine happened in the last week of February 2022. And then that momentum continued, just got into the extra overdrive, which lasted until I believe it was June of 2022 before we saw that final climax. And then crude oil topped out at $130 per barrel, and then after that it was just straight down, right? And here we are in the 70s now, more than a year later. Now you've seen this kind of price action, happened in grain markets. Example, So for example, you look at wheat. You saw a similar kind of price action where the momentum builds and gradually just accelerates all the way up until those bans and those supply side shocks finally become absolutely clear. And then once the event comes through, you see peaking of it within a month or 2 months later. And then we saw grain market cracked in a significant way and prices just fell apart. I will go back to what I said earlier, where, there has been at least three different, from what I've read, different type of bills introduced in Congress to tackle the part of about how to go about banning uranium from Russia. And I'm just saying 14% of the consumption by the utility companies in America comes from Russia alone. When you add Kazakhstan and many others, the percentage is much, much larger. And we have seen this relentless rally continue. I just wonder when that bill finally comes, whenever that might be, and three have been already introduced, but none of them passed. I wonder if we see a top at that point in the uranium prices. And once we get there, like, or maybe soon after that, and then you see basically deflating price action and then normalization to, mean reverting price action that continues for probably a year after that. For now, I'm enjoying the rally. Like I said, I'm an equity guy, so I've been enjoying the rally in CCJ, but I wonder how long that actually will continue.
What
Yeah,
do you
no,
think, Alex?
those are really good points. And I think as well, like I said, as we progress here, I'm sure myself, a lot of the team as well, would love to connect directly one-to-one, so DM us so we can just kind of chat uranium markets more deeply, because I think, this is kind of a space that probably quite a few of the folks listening here as well could talk about for like hours and hours and hours. So yeah, no, I really enjoy this.
Yeah, let me pop in for a second, then I'll hit Drew, and I'd love to get Shy into the mix as well. I got a couple quick questions. One, again, people have been asking me where they can take a look into this. Just go to the pinned tweet that's up top in the space. Or if you go to Dex Tools, if you're familiar with crypto, you can go to Dex Tools, type in U, ticker U. It'll come up under the Uranium 308 chart. You can see all the details on there as well. But my question here was actually around the physical redemption mechanism, because that's something that is laid out. Can you talk through that?
Yeah, so the way it works is that if one is going to take physical redemption, it's usually either to storage or to an enricher. So what one needs to do is have, basically their KYC AML in place. In most cases, if you're going to be, well, all cases, if you're at an enricher or a storage, you are going to have accounts there already where you're KYC'd, AML'd, and you're sort of known in the industry for the most part. It's purely more a financial and sophistication challenge to get accounts set up at these places. But the way we structure things is if one holds a minimum of 20,000 tokens, we supply actual end delivery of the token. That's either done through basically contract purchases through a network of resource partners we work with in the space. However, it does create a situation where someone does still need to go through, the proper KYC AML process for this. So we've been in pretty deep process on this already. We've gotten inbound interest and are in process of basically announcing a couple things over the next few weeks. I think the market will be very, very interested to see. But all the information on that stuff on our website, through the white paper as well. And I think, it's kind of an interesting one because you have to link the two worlds, right? You can't just show up, say, hey, you're in crypto, you want to set up a actual enricher account. You need to be able to work, speak the same language as these guys, understand what their pain points are, what they want to see, and at the same time be able to give them confidence that you're working in good faith with them to actually help their industry. And for the most part, those industry participants are guys who have dealt with this opaque, inefficient market. We're trying to unlock value by doing this whole project. They live that market. They're quite keen. They're quite interested in it, and they see the value prop behind it. I think additionally, what you have is a lot of the older generation that's in the resources space. We've had a lot of interest from folks trying to figure out, like, okay, this is something that could make sense, could solve something interesting, and start learning more about crypto. At the same time, you're having more crypto DeFi guys spend time learning about the uranium and the resources space, which we just think is pretty cool.
Perfect. And then quick follow-up question. Ultimately, like anything, in order to be successful, it often takes institutional or large investor adoption. Do you think institutions will adopt this? Why? Why not? If so, what needs to happen in order for that to happen?
I think from the inbound interest we've gotten, the discussions that we've been having and the meetings we've been having, I think the institutional adoption comes from, like I said, building a product, understanding what they want to see, and having an open dialogue with them to build it such that it is exactly what they want to see, and remove the kind of friction that they would typically feel in terms of interfacing with, the crypto or the DeFi ecosystem as a whole. So I think that is going to come. Like I said, we're going to be announcing stuff over the next several weeks. And I think additionally, that's kind of a testament to the state of the current market, right? Because you have a lot of these guys who, at the end of the day, they either want a mechanism to have efficient supply or efficient pricing. And at the same time, it just kind of speaks to where that space is right now, where guys' heads are at. And the fact is that everybody's looking, I think, similar to what Jaguar touched on. The market right now, is it topping out? I don't know. But at the same time, if you look through historical examples, it probably has a lot more legs to go, considering when you go into the numbers of the actual uranium shortfall of the world, how much is going to be needed. And what Jaguar touched on is some of those sort of geopolitical tensions that are kind of bubbling up from time to time, but heretofore haven't created any major challenges yet.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, let's go to Drew, and then I'd like to get Shy into this. Go for it, Drew.
As I was going to ask the same thing you were just asking, Wolf. I guess with the answers that you gave and kind of the redemption pieces, right? And it sounds like you kind of got to have an account that you would originally need an account for anyway to kind of get your hands on uranium. So, with going through y'all's redemption process, what are the advantages of doing that versus just doing it traditionally?
Well, the fact is that we're able to interface with a whole network sort of at the same time. At the same time, you're able to do things a little bit more quietly. So the fact is that a big point of this project, right, isn't just for providing redemption to that institutional market. That's a feature that we wanted to implement because we see that as unlocking a huge segment of the actual institutional market and providing them a vehicle that they would actually be interested in using. But I think the main point is as well, like for someone like myself who started building this, I've got no interest to take physical settlement or storage or take to an enricher uranium myself. I just wanted a mechanism to express the views I had on uranium and potentially other commodities while keeping my assets on chain. So it's kind of like addressing two different needs at the same time with two very different potential user groups, and trying to solve for both at the same time. So yeah, we're doing a lot on that side. And the team, like I said, from one of the previous questions we've gotten from like the marketing side, this kind of stuff, like we've been relatively quiet because we've been frankly like heads down and completely swamped with both industry participants, other folks, and a lot of the teams kind of distributed around the world. So everybody's ripping around all the time, doing different meetings, talking to different guys in the resources space, meeting with different companies, different traders in that space. And I can't see that stopping for a while, so long as we have as fundamentally strong a uranium market as we do now.
Awesome. So it's definitely meant as more like, I guess I would take it as maybe like an eye catcher to the traditional and kind of expose them to the tokenization blockchain side of things.
Yeah, exactly.
Shai, I'd love to bring you into the mix here. Curious, thoughts on the uranium world. If you've ever seen kind of any overlap like this with the crypto world as well. Any other thoughts, questions, anything else you have?
Yeah, so I'm definitely on like more of an equity guy, like Jaguar mentioned, but I mean, I'm also an investor, and I know that the growing risk of geopolitical tensions, like that's happened the past 2 years, that uranium like prices will be going up, and I was trying to figure out the best way of playing it, and I didn't pull the trigger just because I was still doing research on it, but like CCJ or UEC was like my top names of doing that, and I totally missed the boats on on that. Never pulled the trigger. Never went back down. I mean, I just knew that there have supply disruptions will always be looming in the air, and like it would only lock in supplies by having to sign more agreements, stuff like that. And what do you think is prohibiting people? Because when I talk about uranium to other people, like they never even hear of it about the price like skyrocketing this year, where it's like what I think it went up. It's up past $80, but I think it went 3 or 4x this year, and like a lot of people don't know that. So, do you anticipate this becoming more popular down the line, or another question I have is looking at the UEC chart, like this kind of price expansion has happened like 3 times the past 10 years, and we're around that price where it peaked in 2015 and 2022 and just went back down. Like, why is this this time different?
Yeah, so maybe I'll tackle those points in like reverse order of that they were asked. So I think this time's different because you have this fundamental backdrop of the market that was very different than the preceding bull run. Around a decade and a half ago. That being primarily a large supply demand deficit, while at the same time the demand side of the equation is increasing exponentially. I think, for how the world thinks about it, what was kind of funny, right? Was when we first started this project, talking to my guys that are just pure crypto degen guys, they at first looked at this and were like, dude, tokenizing uranium, that sounds insane. What are you talking about? Like, isn't it just used for bombs? And then they start educating themselves on the nuclear energy space, what it means for achieving an actual net zero carbon future, how the kind of space operates, how it trades, like what matters in it, what doesn't matter in it. I think the fact is that, when you think about the crypto side of the world, we had this kind of like running joke internally where I think this was a few months ago, but the band U2, who was famously always against uranium, well, not so much uranium, but nuclear energy, even protesting against it years ago, etc. They kind of flipped pro nuclear just a couple of months ago and were tweeting about it. Basically, you had Bono saying, he's changed his mind on nuclear. And I think when you see interesting technologies like SMRs and modular reactors be brought out and rolled out across the world, they're attracting massive capital inflows. They're attracting a lot of interest. And I think, the best backdrop for obviously investor attention for an asset is the price going up with a fundamentally sound backdrop to it. I think that's what you have for uranium. And I think it's probably going to follow the line that a lot of these more niche underfollowed commodities have had over time, which is, they reach peaks and heights that you find yourself kicking yourself for a long time. And, coming from as well myself, spending a lot of time in the traditional investment space, I know, and being a trader by heart, like I know exactly, Shai, what you're talking about, where you see an asset sometimes you're kicking yourself that you've missed the boat, you haven't pulled the trigger, and it continues to make you want to kick yourself harder and harder. I think with uranium right now, the backdrop is you have like a multi-year bullish fundamental backdrop for it, not just like a sort of flash in the pan geopolitical event one-off that's created this dynamic. And at the same time, with what Jaguar had touched on with some of these geopolitical situations, nothing necessarily needs to go wrong in that side. I think the overall state of the world right now, with tensions around, to put it lightly, leads to incentives for different countries to want to lock in their supply, have a defendable or dependable pathway for that supply, considering the amount of money being spent on the actual expansion of nuclear reactors. So I don't know if that answers your question or if I did all of them, but like I said, with anything else, always feel free to DM myself, any of the other team members, shoot us an email, set up a call, whatever. We can talk about this stuff till guys' heads roll off their shoulders. So
No, that was perfect. I appreciate it. That's all I had. That was very helpful.
Superb. Thank you, Shai. Appreciate the questions. I'm learning a lot here about uranium myself. Regardless of the way that people are going about purchasing it, hopefully this is bringing you a lot of great insights. And again, something to look into and do your due diligence into as well. So another question that I had on here was around kind of the competition, right? Obviously, there's competition in the traditional equity space, but I'm assuming that there's other projects that are focused on the commodities and RWA projects. How do you differentiate yourself from them?
So I think uranium has quite a wide moat around it, considering both how regulated the space is and also how insular it is, whereby there's a lot less guys operating in the traditional uranium physical settlement enrichment market than there is for something like gold or copper or cobalt, for example. We've had interest from quite a few VCs about building out, other commodities, doing other assets, things of this nature. I think my mind and the team's mind is really focused on uranium for the next foreseeable future, considering our perspective of a much longer fundamental backdrop for the commodity years down the line. And at the same time, there really is, I think, right now, very few, if any, commodities that have the kind of mix of this market structure that makes uranium very interesting to bring to the DeFi world, at the same time have a fundamental backdrop that is so structurally bullish, in my opinion. So I think, we'll see how things go here. we were asked about things as kind of unique as, like jade or granite at times. There's also some very, very niche battery metals out there that don't really trade. I think the thing with uranium is it's going to be increasing general population's mind share. At the same time, nuclear energy is and net zero carbon is a goal like, myself and the team fundamentally believe in. And being strong believers in that, we want to do what we can to both help achieve it, promote how we think, our opinion of nuclear energy is as it relates to overall global energy demands, as well as reaching net zero carbon goals while keeping, a stable and accessible supply of electricity for the rest of the world. Because at the end of the day, a country or a nation's GDP is very tightly correlated to its accessibility and affordability of electricity. And in my opinion, that's very difficult to achieve the net zero carbon goals a lot of the countries in the world have put out there without, going very heavy on the nuclear front. So, yeah, I think, the team's going to be putting out news, constantly communicating with the community. And at the same time, we've had interesting discussions about, different things that we could potentially be doing, but nothing has, I think, as much personal interest to myself or the team right now in such a unique market that uranium exhibits.
Perfect. Drew or Dave, Dave, do you have any other questions at the top of mind? I know you mentioned before you had a few, but wanted to keep it rolling around. And no worries if not. I do have a couple others off the top of my head. I also see we got Bill up here. Bill, if you have any questions, feel free to throw a hand up and raise it, and I'll come over to you as well. But the other question I had for now, and I've mentioned it a few times, but where do people actually find the company? How would you recommend people do due diligence into the company?
So I think a couple mechanisms, right? We have our website, uranium308.com. We've got the community Telegram. And at the same time, we're constantly adding material. We're going to be rolling out a couple new things on the website over the coming weeks. And I think the team's, pretty accessible online. So everybody should always feel free to just hit the contact email, schedule a call, have a discussion. We can walk through anything from the technical tokenization side of things, how we've structured things, the audits we've had done by Hallborn, basically anything and everything people would want to talk about. So I would say websites, white paper, Twitter, Telegram. Any other questions outstanding? I would say everyone should do a lot of their own due diligence, considering how sensitive a commodity it is. Should feel free to hit up the team at any point in time. And like I said, we live and breathe and have been working very hard on this for months and months. So yeah, we can talk about anything and everything in as much detail as anybody would like. All we would ask is reach out to us.
Okay, perfect. And then quick follow-up question, which is more industry-wide here. So I think that, even in the beginning you mentioned, hey, there's more interest building in uranium, gold, silver, but one of these seems to me to have far more use cases than the others, that being uranium. How do you see it really differentiating itself from some of these other, commodities?
Again, I think it comes back to the fact that you don't have as niche a market structure as you do with uranium. Like if one goes and Googles the COMEX uranium futures or pulls all that up, you'll see there's zero open interest, zero volume. It's not a market where things transact. So it's a very interesting place to unlock and try to build out a structure whereby you could have the first bid-ask market for this asset. So I think that's where a lot of the insulation comes from, and at the same time, by relationships we've built out in the industry and the discussions with groups we're having that operate purely in the institutional trading front of uranium, I think a moat's built by having an interesting asset, having an interesting tech stack around it, and thinking about things where you can attract as much of the right kind of attention by doing things the right way, being open to feedback and building things out consistently instead of just throwing a project out there, hoping it works, and then moving on to something else. Like myself and the team, we're locked in on this, and we're not going anywhere, even if the price of uranium starts to go down, which we don't think it will, but
Perfect. Got it. Hey, I see Action came up on stage. Action, welcome to the party. If you have any questions, feel free to throw them in to the mix. Would be happy. Oh, yeah, I see the hand up.
Sorry, big nerd over here. So California, the lovely state that I happen to reside in, are big doofuses when it comes to nuclear. Like I drive past a power plant that is literally not generating anything. Do you see that affecting, the price of uranium long term? Because they seem to think that, nuclear bad. I don't know where they got that, but
I'm not sure, right? Like, I believe Diablo Canyon in Southern California, some good stuff happened with them in terms of the legislation to extend their operations. And at the same time, I think, I think at the end of the day, the necessity for energy that is clean, net zero carbon, that's only going to increase. So for California, as a state, you probably have a better opinion than me on where things stand internally there. But I think I'll come back to kind of the quote of U2, and if I think Bono and U2 can shift their opinion on nuclear, then California is not out of the question either.
Yeah, I think that is an interesting point. Jaguar, if I could pull you back in on that, I'd love to get your thoughts as well. Uranium definitely gets a much worse rep than gold and some of these others. Do you think that's something that's changing? Are people going to just be brought around by the force of needing to change, of realizing, nuclear energy is kind of here to stay? What do you think is going to lead to that? Because that could be a big catalyst as sentiment evolves.
I think the simplest answer to that is, one can buy gold and one can buy silver, and one can hold it in the form of physical, like coins or jewelry or anything else, and find store of value that way. One can even trade this through instruments like GLD or SLV or many other things. But aside from industrial applications for uranium, I mean, what is there a mechanism, if there is one at all, for a normal person that, let's just say, wants to hoard um, uranium to go about it? I don't even know if there's one that exists. I mean, can one go and just buy uranium, physical, and hold it or store it? I mean, are there? I guess that's what it comes down to, because in the simplest, easiest answer that I can give related to this. And I wouldn't necessarily say, Wolf, that it gets a bad rap per se. I think that if it is the case that way, it's mostly because of just how geopolitics is so much involved in terms of consumption trends for uranium, and the so many bad episodes that the world has faced with consumption of uranium in the past, from the power plant in Japan to the you know to the uranium plant in what is that movie I'm trying to remember, from when Russia, when Ukraine was part of Russia before 1992, and that thing blew up. um,
Chernobyl.
Here you go, right there. Great show, by the way, on HBO if you haven't seen it. So I think it's just the industrial application uses of it are, and then naturally the atomic bombs and all of that is part of that entire calculus as well. Those are not the same dynamics in play at all for other types of precious metals. So I think that's really the simplest answer I can provide to that question. But yeah, is there a mechanism available for common person to just buy uranium and hold it? I don't think there is. Is there?
Not hold it directly, but you have kind of analogous things with the Sprott Physical Uranium Trust in public markets, then Yellowcake PLC in Europe. You've also had the emergence of groups. There's a well-known one in Singapore. I'm spacing on the name on, but Zuri Invest out of Switzerland, that aren't sort of direct access, but they're accredited investor private vehicles for spot uranium. I think to your point, gold, silver you can go get and keep under your pillow. You obviously don't want to do the same thing with uranium. So yeah, I think
The radioactivity, right? I mean, you sleep on it under your pillow, and then what happens next?
yeah, exactly right. So anyways, like I said, I mean, everyone should always feel free to reach out to the team, email us, check out the website, DM any of us. We're always happy to have a call, have a discussion, and yeah, other than that, we're just our heads down, continuously working here.
Very nice, very nice. I know we're probably gonna do about 3 or so more minutes on this topic. Is there anything that I haven't covered yet, Alex, that you think is important to hit on?
I mean, we've covered a lot of it here. It's fairly late in the time zone I'm at. So, like I said, if anybody's got any questions, feel free to reach out and we can get into it anytime.
Yeah,
Myself, I'm obviously speaking. We have, Cody who's listening as well, and a few other folks in the team that you can either pull up on the website or just on Twitter itself. So I think, yeah, everyone should feel free to reach out, have a discussion with us, learn more about it, understand what we're trying to do and how we're doing it. And outside of that, thank you guys for the chance to come out and talk about the spiciest rocks there are.
absolutely. The spiciest rocks there are super cool. If anybody is interested in this uranium world, definitely make sure that you are, of course, following the coast up here. The rest of the panel has been great as we've been chatting through this topic. Super educational and informational in the world of tokenized uranium. And again, you can go right onto Dextools. It's ticker U, and you can find that right through their page as well. Make sure if you're going to do it, you actually just go through their page because obviously there's a lot of people out there that try to scam things. So if you just go through their link directly, that's the best way to go about it. Shout out to Bill for being up here. I don't know if you wanted to say anything else on this, but if you're good, Alex, I know that we're going to do one more chat next week as well. So I will bid you a good night since it's late in your time zone. I got one more space coming up here, and I look forward to chatting with you next week.
Likewise, thanks for having us on behalf of me and the team. And yeah, we'll keep everybody updated and keep things moving here. So thanks again, guys.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right, Jaguar, Shy, appreciate you guys hopping on. I think some of the others are staying on. I got one more space coming up here tonight. I am going to need a couple speaker spots. But Jaguar, enjoy your night. I know we'll be talking during the day tomorrow. Shy, I'm sure. I think you're going to be on in the morning space as well. Looking forward to doing it with you guys. Okay, I'm going to need those co-host spots too. I got a lot of new speakers coming up here. I am bringing them up. I see y'all requesting. All right, I think we're looking pretty good. Dane, how's it going, man?
Good. What's up, Wolf? Been looking forward to this one, man. I know you're busy, so we're happy you got us in.
Oh yeah, yeah. Happy that we were able to make this happen. I know we wanted to get it in. This is my 11th hour of Spaces today, but I am all for it, and we can keep things rolling. I know, Action. Don't be so surprised. This is the regular. By the way, I'm trying to get the SquidGrow account up on stage. It's giving me trouble, so you might want to let them know to like reload Spaces and try to come back in and re-request, and I'll try to get them. I'll do my best to get them on stage at that point. For right now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to update the title of the space, which is going to be an AMA with SquidGrow. And with that being said, I think we are, yeah. So to the team, I can't bring you up. It's not letting me. So go ahead and just re-request and I'll make that work. I sent you a co-host over to Dane. Welcome Poppy to the stage. Welcome to the Shiptoshi account as well as our dub. With that being said, we are going to go ahead and get rolling here. We're going to start with some introductions. I have been getting tagged in tweets literally all day of people that are excited for this AMA. I think my other speakers have seen it. We've just been getting absolutely slammed with tweets on this. So I know that there's plenty of interest. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead. We're going to hop right into it. We're going to turn over the floor. I've got some questions. If you have a question, feel free to DM me the question, and I will do my best to ask it as well. Dane, am I going to be throwing these directly at you to start?
Yeah, you could actually start with Shitoshi, our CEO. I'm going to real quickly, Wolf. I'm just going to switch out onto the main tag so people can see SquidGrow since it's giving us problems, and I'll be right back on here.
All right, sounds good. Shitoshi, we're going to start with yourself. I'd love to turn the mic over to you for an introduction.
Hey, Wolf, how's it going, man? Happy to be here. Been looking forward to this space, so thanks for having us. Just kind of a brief introduction. I'll introduce my team. So, RW is my co-founder and COO of SquidGrow, and Dane is my CMO. I am one of the co-founders, the CEO. Been in this space since 2011, and just kind of grown with the market, as it has evolved. First heard about Bitcoin in 2010. Did some digging into it, saw its affiliation with Silk Road and the dark net, wrote it off as something illegal. Several months later, on the poker tables in Vegas, I heard about Bitcoin once again as a means to do online poker games. And after I kind of knew some people that were actually, involved in it and answered some questions that you can actually convert this Bitcoin back to fiat, which is something I did not know previously. I kind of started dabbling into it, did my first Bitcoin purchase in 2011, 30 grand, lost it the next day at the poker tables, and it was off to the races for me.
Love it. Appreciate the introduction there. Ardub, you want to throw an introduction in of yourself?
Yeah, man. Thanks, Wolf. Thanks for having us today. I'll keep it pretty brief. Shib gave a little introduction, but yeah, I'm known as RDub. I've been in the crypto space as well since around 2011. Didn't come into DeFi until really a couple of years ago, maybe 2021 or something like that. And shortly after that, I was introduced to Shibtoshi, and we kind of formed a pretty solid friendship very quickly. And that's how we kind of, one thing led to another, and we ended up launching a project together, which was SquidGrow. Since then, it's just been all guns blazing, and here we are today, kind of 18 months on, still pushing it as hard as we can.
Perfect. And Dane, want to introduce yourself?
Sure. What's up, guys? I'm Dane. I'm on the main tag here. So I'm the marketing guy. As you heard Satoshi say, I'm the CMO. I've been an avid fan of crypto since 2016 and got into this space and hit the ground running and haven't looked back. My background's in cybersecurity, personal training. So it kind of had a perfect mesh with this world. Got to get up on stage, which I love doing with people like you. Always fun. And I got to meet Satoshi and RDub along the way in my journey and have not looked back with SquidGrow. We've been building, I think, something truly incredible, and I'm excited to get into it with you.
Perfect. Appreciate the introductions there, guys. All right, let's talk about it. I think we have to start high level here with what is SquidGrow. So I will turn it over to Shibtoshi to cover that. Kind of in a nutshell, we'll get into utility afterwards, but high level, what is SquidGrow?
SquidGrow is a meme utility token that was conceptualized in June of 2022. It essentially stems from the the need and the desire to give a safe and secure place to the community. SquidGrow was obviously very early conceptualized to kind of solve an issue that my friends and family were dealing with in the space, and something that I've kind of seen through my time in crypto was, as my friends are trying to evolve and learn about crypto, they are very poor with doing their due diligence on projects, and 9 times out of 10 ended up investing into scam tokens. So some of my friends started hounding me to come out with a project that would be safe and secure, and as they were kind of biting at my heels, they kind of wore me down, and I decided that I was going to do it better than some of the other projects that are currently out there. So we launched this project to give friends, family, and community a safe and secure place to invest their money. And I think that we are doing a pretty good job of demonstrating that with our strong stance on security and security audits, and being open and transparent with everybody.
Appreciate that. Okay, now let's talk about, well, the why. I suppose you gave the what and the why there. Did you want to add anything in kind of on the why side?
Dane, you wanna add to that?
Yeah, I'd love to. So I know that your audience here is mostly familiar with, I believe, like a lot of stocks, right? A lot of stock traders, because I always tune into your morning show, Wolf. So maybe some different opinions on crypto and what it is, and why why they should invest in it, or maybe why they haven't invested in it. But the difference, I think, in SquidGrow, it dates back to when we started, which was June of 2022, and we started when everything else was stopping. Essentially, like it was crashing. This was right before the FTX happened. It was an absolutely brutal time, and we also launched on Binance's chain initially before moving over to Ethereum as well. And when we launched, it was like all odds were against us. We were swimming upstream, so to speak. But it didn't stop us, and Satoshi came out swinging. And what set us apart was the fact that we were able to build with him as a leader. A lot of projects, they're completely dependent on volume in crypto. For instance, when buys and sells dry up, that's game over for the project, because then at that point they cannot do anything. But because of who Satoshi is and what he's been through as a person, he's been able to basically just consistently build throughout this entire time. So for us, the bear market has been a time where we've just been putting together this vision that we'll get into. And in doing so, a lot of strengths have been formed, specifically our community. because a lot of people did stick around in the crypto market, the bear market, and I think that those people who stuck around in that market are real avid crypto people, versus the type of people that you get FOMOing into the top of the market cycle. Say, for instance, in 2021, the guys that found SquidGrow and stuck around and held our floor throughout this time are completely different animals. So I think what a main difference for us is the team, the ability that we have to push regardless of macro, and then of course the people that are behind it now in our community. I think that they're very crypto-minded veterans, and a lot different than what you see in typical, Ponzi style pump and dump projects that just pop up week to week.
Perfect. Appreciate that, Dane. So let me throw in one or two more questions, and then I'll go around to some of these hands. This one's coming back to you, Shibtoshi. You gave a little bit of the backstory in regard to Bitcoin, your friends. I'd love to hear a little bit more how kind of like Shiba and RW worked into this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I was saying, I found crypto in 2011, and I've kind of grown with the market. I've dabbled in everything from Bitcoin, Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash was kind of a big thing when the network split and everybody that was currently on the Bitcoin got 1-to-1 on Bitcoin Cash. Ethereum when that came out, and I was shilled SHIB in 2020, about 5 hours after it launched, and kind of talking with some of my friends that had shilled it to me, I decided I was going to start dollar cost averaging into it, and then kind of made it kind of like a competition. I wanted to hold more than my friends. Obviously, back then, I had no way of knowing that SHIB was going to go on to do anything close to what it did. I was actually buying the pump all the way up to the million and the million market cap, and I was dollar cost averaging all the way down to the floor. So most notably in this space, I'm known for my Shiba Inu investment. And although everybody seems to think that it was an $8,000 investment that turned to 5.7 billion, it was actually 37 Ethereum that I invested into that. And the 5.7 billion mark comes from my OG wallet, but it's not factoring in the side wallet that I had. I started splitting off from the side wallet, and that side wallet held 30 trillion SHIB tokens, which at the top had about $2 billion in it as well. So everybody talks about the 8,000 to 5.7 billion, but it was actually a little more of an investment than that. It was about 13,000 and change. And collectively, it was about $8 billion in SHIB. But kind of, made my rounds in the space and started being a little more active around that time. I kind of started, my interest in DeFi, and started, communicating and engaging and getting more involved with the projects. And I'd say, SHIB just grew on me. I mean, the type of community that they have over there is exactly what I am trying to model SquidGrow after. I mean, it's just a bunch of diehards. I mean, they have an army, and they go out there, they hit the X and spread awareness, and I mean, that's all you can ask for in this space. But obviously, when I met RW in a whale room back in, I want to say 2022. It was in this whale room that we started talking about the sediment in the space and the problems that it was plagued with. And I had kind of mentioned that, one of my best friends, he goes by the Huntsman, was poking and prodding me to launch my own project. And talking to Dub about it, we decided it was something that we were going to do. So out of all the names in the space that we could have possibly picked from, I decided to go with SquidGrow. At the time, when the project was conceptualized, the Squid Games TV show was very hot and heavy, and there was another project on the market that was doing really well, which I was an investor in. It was called Evergrow, and kind of took the best of both worlds, in my personal opinion, and put them together, and SquidGrow was conceptualized. We launched June 17th, 2022. And about 5 minutes after launch, we realized there was a project. There was an issue with the contract, so we had to announce to the community that we had to pause trading and relaunch. So we did a formal relaunch and airdrop the next day to all of our existing holders, which was about 88 holders at that time. and seeded the liquidity and was off to the races. And very recently, I believe October 1st, we did a BSC contract migration upgrade. So we're multi-chain, obviously. We're on BSC and Ethereum. When we offered the ILO for Ethereum, we raised $1 million in about 26 hours, which we used 100% of that for our initial liquidity. And now, after the BSC migration, both BSC and Ethereum share the same contract address. So, that was kind of very important to me, because with the type of space that we are in, people trying to, portray, being a legitimate project, maybe trying to copy our name. I wanted both contracts to have matching contract IDs to try to minimize the possibility of scams.
Appreciate the detailed insights there. So at the end of the day, launching something new here, you could tell me, I would say there's a million coins, but there's probably more than a million, far more than that at this point. What's the difference between this and the competition? What really makes it stand out in your eyes from the variety of others people can, go on CoinMarketCap and see?
Well, first and foremost is I'm doing okay in life, and I fully back and support this project. And what I mean by that is we have a tax on our token. It's 4% buy, 6% sell, all of which goes to liquidity. So what's unique and different about us is I fully fund every exchange listing, every utility that's ever been built, all marketing campaigns I pay for out of pocket. The project does not generate any marketing income at all whatsoever. But as I said, 100% goes to our liquidity. That's how we've been able to maintain such great liquidity ratios through the duration of our project. So that's something that is different about us. Next, we have a major focus on security. We currently have 9 Certex security audits, 2 more being worked on right now. The additional 2 that are being under audit right now is Incubate, our NFT marketplace that we were coming out with. So that will put us at a total of 11 Certex security audits. We're currently ranked, I believe, in the top 10% of Certex. We currently have an 87.66 score right now. We're ranked pretty high under the meme category, and we're ranked, I believe, in the hundreds of overall out of all the crypto projects in the space that have been audited with Certex. So, security is a big thing for us. I mean, one of the biggest vulnerabilities of a project is their utilities being exploited or their smart contracts. So we put great emphasis on that. So that's another big thing, and we're not just limiting ourselves to the meme category. We're also building utility as well, and we have been building for the majority of this bear market. I don't really want to take up too much time getting into the utilities. I think we can circle into that kind of on its own, but great emphasis is on actually use case utilities, which is currently what we have going on and building. So those are just a couple things that kind of makes us a little different than the rest.
Okay, let's take a question from Dave, and then let's dive into utility. Go for it, Dave.
So I got a couple. It's good to meet you guys. So first question is, so it was about 12 or 13,000 on the Shiba Inu. Did you cash out 5 billion plus?
No, I'm most notably known for diamond handing my investment.
No shit. Okay.
Yeah, I currently hold a little over 101 trillion tokens collectively now. I have split my wallets up substantially, but I can't seem to shake bubble maps. So maybe one day I'll be able to shake them. But as of right now, they're on me pretty hard.
Good luck. It's only going to get better. But I appreciate you answering that, man. Thank you. But in regards to SquidGrow, right? When you guys talk about utility, right? Like I always I try and really understand the rationale behind any sort of meme token, because I believe that meme tokens do serve a purpose. I don't know exactly what the purpose specifically is just yet, other than like it can bring communities together. But
Yeah.
when I see tokens that have such an insane amount of outstanding supply, give me the logic behind like why trillions or quadrillions, and B, what is the utility for SquidGrow?
Okay, perfect. So obviously, a meme token is just that. It's a meme token. It by itself does not serve any real use case in the world. It's just something that, a meme can, have its day in, the limelight and have its hype. But after that hype kind of falls away, you don't have anything to fall back on. That's why we say we're a meme utility token. So that's kind of where the utility comes in. But before I get into the utility, I'll touch on the supply. So because we're a meme utility token, majority of the memes in the space have big supplies, right? 1 quadrillion supply. Some of them got even larger supplies than that. The supply in itself doesn't really serve any purpose. I mean, because your ratios of supply would be the same if you had 1 million in supply or 1 billion in supply. Everybody kind of focuses on the supply and burning and this, that, and the other, but burns don't really serve a purpose, in my personal opinion. I'm completely against burns. The supply is just something that we decided that kind of gave it the meme aspect. Kind of just following suit with other memes in the space. Now, the difference, between a meme and a utility project is this. So these are kind of the utilities that we are currently building. And Dane, feel free to chime in
Yeah,
if I overlook anything.
real
But
quickly before you do, Shib, and I will chime in. So the thing with meme coins, I think, to answer your question just real briefly, Dave, too, is to me, meme coins are sort of a brand. In the real world of marketing, corporations, and advertising, you've got Aflac with the duck, you've got Geico with the lizard, right? So, like, are those meme tokens? Are those meme companies? No, I think it's just their brand in a way, and largely that's become the norm for cryptos too. Is they have a brand to try to create an eye-popping catch, because what you'll find in Web3 is that it's incredibly boring in some instances. Like, you can have the best utility in the world at a level of DeFi, and nobody will notice you unless you do something to grab their attention. So oftentimes projects that would be labeled as a meme are sort of boxed into that meme to their discredit, when in fact they have a lot more underneath the surface of that meme. So I think it's becoming more of a norm. Now there are pure meme tokens out there, like Ship said, that are just that, and that's all they are. But even something like Dogecoin, for example, like Dogecoin is considered a meme coin, but it does have a payment network behind it that people actually use. I mean, Mark Cuban used it with the Mavericks. There's been tons of use case for Doge. I'm not arguing for Doge. I'm just saying that oftentimes meme coins do have utilities behind them, especially the ones that have been around for a longer period of time. So I think that we're that second category where you have the meme as the brand, but it's just that. It's just a brand. It's just an image. The stuff under the surface is the real meat and potatoes of the project. So that's kind of my thoughts on that and memes.
Yeah, so I guess I get that, right? So when I look at something like, and my question, by the way, wasn't about memes. Like, I think memes definitely serve a purpose. Like, I think your meme is actually pretty fucking dope. I think it's pretty cool.
yeah, on that real quick, I do want to point out that we do own all of our intellectual property rights and trademarks on our logo. So we had very early on, we were in contact with Netflix, and obviously when we first launched, we were infringing on their intellectual property rights. So they were actually worked with us to change our logo enough to where it did not infringe. Obviously, we had to change all of our fonts because apparently they own all the intellectual property on their fonts as well. Restructured the website and our logos, and now we own our own intellectual property rights on our logo. So there's that as well. That's something that's different from some of the other squid tokens in the space as well.
Got you. And last question, because I know that you guys, you mentioned, when I asked about the overall supply, right?
Yep.
In regards to the overall supply, I know. So you said, hey, because like typically other meme tokens kind of have the same thing, but from what I've seen, and tell me if you guys have seen something different. It's when a meme token, right, or when like some sort of like social movement is happening, like and that social movement is backed by, let's say, a meme, and let's say in this, what I'm referring to, let's say as an example, would be like a Grok, right? Like when I look at Grok, the new AI that's coming out for Twitter, I look at kind of their supply, I look at a bunch of other different things, and it's like they're not doing that other stuff. And I feel like that's a big contributing reason why is because they have like, I don't know, maybe 10 billion. It's not the smallest in the world, but they
Yeah.
don't have kind of quadrillions. I feel like the market has this perception that it's weighted towards in favor of like the founders and everything else. Help me dispel that rumor.
Sib, do you want to take that, or do you want me to?
You go ahead and make your take on it, and then I'll chime in.
Okay, yeah, I think two different views there will be good because that is a great question. So I think it's sort of arbitrary. Again, the supply is sort of a number that a project goes with, but something that a lot of experienced people in DeFi have learned to do is whether there's 100 quadrillion tokens or whether there's 10,000. We look at liquidity and we look at market cap. So that's kind of like the I guess you could say breaking through the mold. And there is still kind of this thing out there where people ask, when's it going to get to $1, right? So a lot of blue chip traders that come into crypto, they're thinking, okay, when's this thing going to get to $1? And then they see like 5 decimals on it, and it confuses them a bit.
That is definitely one of the drawbacks to a large supply. The realization of hitting a penny or $1 is, slim to none unless you do substantial burns.
Right.
So I mean, there is that benefit, to the low supply. But go ahead, Dane. Sorry about that.
No, you're good. That's exactly right. So a lot of people are still stuck in that paradigm where they feel like everything has to go to $1. But in reality, because these different supplies essentially just change the amount of decimals that you'll see in the price of a token, it has confused a lot of people that come into the world. But it is sort of normal, and you will see all sorts of numbers of supplies in the token space. So sometimes they'll have 69,000, sometimes they'll have 420,000, sometimes they'll have 10 Googleplex. Like I've seen crazy ones, and it's just some of them just do it as a marketing ploy. And for the most part, though, our supply where you see it at is actually kind of normal. Like there's Shiba, there's Floki. Those are 2 big billion-dollar projects that are much larger than Grok that have those same tokenomics almost identically with the same amount of decimals being 9. So it really just depends on what the project wants to do, because it's regardless of whether you have a huge supply or a low supply, you can still go up in market cap value, and that's where you're going to get your X's from. And then more importantly, the liquidity ratio. A lot of projects will mess with the liquidity. They'll have very low liquidity, and they'll fly to like a huge market cap, but as soon as someone takes profit, it comes dumping back down. So that's the other important thing to focus on, is what their actual amount in liquidity is so that people can pull profit. And as Shibtoshi said, all of our tax goes back to liquidity. So that means that people are actually able to pull profit on a long time frame without necessarily harming our chart as much. So very, very good question, and it's a very interesting thing about crypto. But I think too many people focus on the price and should more so be looking a little bit deeper into the holders and into the liquidity, into the market cap as well.
Yeah, I would I would second that. I mean, for me personally, as an investor in the space, I don't really look at the amount of supply. I look at the liquidity to market cap ratios. If I invest into this and there's a run, am I going to be able to get my position out? I mean, there's numerous instances of projects that have had massive movements, and there's just a lack of liquidity. I mean, obviously, I love everything about Shiba Inu, but could I have pulled $5.7 billion out of SHIB at the top if I wanted to? Absolutely not. Could I have tried? Sure, but at what risk? I think for me, it's more important, factoring in liquidity to market cap ratios. There's a lot of projects out in space that are having massive movements, but their liquidity is like 0.5% to market cap or 1%. So obviously, yeah, you're going to move massively. With any kind of buys and sells, it's going to fluctuate substantially versus something with a higher liquidity to market cap ratio. You're going to be more stable. And you can take a look at our chart, and for the better half of a year, we've been relatively stable. Sometimes there's jokes, in the space that we're more like a stable coin because our liquidity is decently ratioed to our market cap.
Appreciate that, guys. Yeah, you can come back, and I probably have a few more questions, but go ahead, Poppy.
Well, I wanted to talk to you about your utility question, because actually we didn't touch on that. So in regards to utilities, and real quick, Dane, Dub, is this with the conversation that we had earlier pre this show? Should we drop a little alpha here, or we want to shelf that for a little later in the show?
Yeah, let's definitely we'll drop it in the show, but let's dive into our short term, then our
Okay.
long term, and then we can sort of like take questions on those and then drop the alpha.
Okay. All right, perfect. So as far as utilities go, currently right now, what we have put out and what's been audited is obviously we have a bridge, and a bridge isn't any kind of massive utility. But since the beginning, we've been building SGX. SGX is a decentralized perpetual exchange. I'm sure most of y'all are pretty familiar with that. So that's one of the utilities that we have been working on for a while. We currently have 4 versions of it. We are fine tuning our final version of that, just kind of making it the very best that we can. The benefit to the community with rolling out something like SGX is 25% of all revenue generated will come back into the chart in the form of buybacks or liquidity injections. So that's one of our bigger utilities that we have coming out. Also, previously I spoke on Incubate, which is our NFT marketplace. It is integrated with the Launchpad, so it's a one-stop shop essentially for launching a collection. With that, this is where the Mike Miller from DC Comics and Game of Thrones NFT collection will be debuting. And anybody that's not familiar with that, Mike Miller came up with 10,000 unique NFTs for us. We have 100 of them that we are calling our ultra rares, and the 100 ultra rares are incorporated with blue chip NFTs. And what I mean by that is they are pictured holding a Polaroid picture of another blue chip NFT. So I spent about $300,000 picking up some blue chips. Obviously, this was before the market dip, but bought Mutant Apes, Doodles, Kennel Clubs, Metaverse Land. I mean, the list just kind of went on. Anything that I was buying at the time or that was kind of hot, I picked up, and we added that into our collection. So essentially with that, if you mint one of our ultra rares holding a Polaroid, it's redeemable to get ownership of the actual blue chip. So it could be a potential win-win for somebody out there, and there's 100 of those. But the NFT marketplace is one of our other utilities that is currently in audit right now. Let me see. We
Yeah.
have go
The
ahead.
the NFT marketplace is, for those that are into that stuff listening, it's pretty significant because there has been a little bit of shakeup recently with Yuga Labs and with OpenSea, different instances with creators not getting royalty fees anymore. So there's a bit of a void there, and it's part of the reason why NFTs have sort of sunk the way they have. But they are coming back slowly, and as the market comes back in crypto, you can definitely place a strong bet that NFTs will come soaring back with them to some degree. So Incubate, plans to be at the forefront of that and put itself right in the picture with those bigger NFT marketplaces such as Blur and such as OpenSea and such as the Yuga Labs stuff that they're doing. So we're excited about that. And as Ship said, we have Mike S. Miller. And Mike S. Miller, for those that don't know, is a 30-plus year veteran of Marvel and DC Universe. He actually helped create the comic books Injustice, and has been working on Game of Thrones in the past. He's a very, very versatile and experienced artist, and he's literally on our core team helping make our own NFT collection. So that's huge. And we actually work with Mike Miller on a regular basis to help with our graphics and artwork for the project as well.
Correct. And obviously something a little different about our NFT marketplace, not to take up too much time on just one utility, is, as Dane said, we do have our creator fees. But something I am personally offering to any potential artists that we decide to bring on to do a collection for us. If we sign a contract with an artist to do a collection for us, obviously they're paid to do that collection, let's say 10,000. And upon delivery of that, if this artist agrees to trying to help us mint out our collection as far as marketing it and putting the word out there, and we have a full mint on the collection that he's done, I'm going to give a percentage of all revenue that is generated from that collection. So most artists, they're only paid their flat fee for throwing NFTs together. We'll say $250,000 because that's kind of the standard in the space. So normally an artist only collects a $250,000 paycheck. With us, not only will they collect a $250,000 paycheck, but let's say we generate $10 million from a collection that they help us mint out. They're going to be given a large percentage, or not a large percentage, but a percentage of that overall minting. So it's a double payday. It's incentive for them to, spread awareness of the collection and, further kind of help us get the word out there with what we're doing. But that's just kind of Incubate and kind of what we have going there. But literally, our launch pad is so easy. 11-year-old could essentially launch a collection there. You can literally take images and convert them to NFTs, or you can load it up. You can load up the contract with attributes and do the normal minting. But it's a one-stop shop. There's no need to have a landing page, no need to pay a developer to make contracts for the minting. You can do that all on Incubate. So that's something that's unique about that. As well, we also have just concluded our audit on Knox Locker. Knox Locker is our liquidity locker. We locked our liquidity for a long time with Unicrypt, and there came a point in time that as a project owner, I was kind of tired of seeing 1% of our liquidity go out every time we lock it, because we lock our liquidity in 3-month intervals. Liquidity was originally locked for a year, and when we realized that we had to do a migration on BSC, we were unable to do so because our liquidity was locked. So since then, we've been locking in 3-month intervals. But the downfall to that is every time you lock, you lose 1% of your liquidity. So we developed our own liquidity locker and had it successfully audited with Certec, obviously passed. And that's another utility that we are coming out with. It has not yet debuted, but when we put it out there to the masses, I think we're going to offer a 30 to 60 day period where it's zero fees and anybody can lock there. This will be a revenue generating utility for the project, so a percentage of everything that's generated there will go back into the chart. Versus, same with all of our utilities that we develop. Everything we're developing feeds back into the center of the universe, which is SquidGrow. So the community is going to get benefit from everything we're putting out. But Knox Locker is another utility. Dane, anything else that we have publicly spoken on that we're building outside of what I've said?
Man, there's a lot. It's honestly like to Wolf and Dave, like we can go about utility. We've been building stuff for, like I said, a year and a half plus now. So
yeah, but as far as what we've publicly stated,
no, I don't think so. Other than you got the locker, you got the bridge, you got Incubate, you got SGX, you got the SquidGrow swap, you got Sam. You can talk about Sam real quick if you'd like.
Oh yeah. So Sam stands for SquidGrow Absorption Machine. It's kind of very unique to our contract. So the SAM function in our contract allows us to easily our ecosystem. So one example of this.
Cut out for me, Shib.
What's that?
I think his mic cut out for anybody else, or was that just me? Apologies if it was just me.
Just for a second. Just for a second.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, go ahead.
Yeah, so the SAM function in our contracts is very unique. When we created our new Ethereum contract, we coded this into the contract. So it allows us to directly inject another project's liquidity directly into our liquidity pool, thus obviously moving our chart so it has the same effect as a buy on the chart, but it also is directly into our liquidity pool. So as an example, our buy tax is 4%. So if we were to acquire a project that had $100,000 in liquidity, and we do $100,000 buy on the chart, obviously it's going to move the chart, but 4% of that 100 grand is all that goes to liquidity. So it kind of throws our ratios off versus using our SAM functionality, injecting 100,000 straight into our liquidity pool. Not only is it going to move our chart as if 100,000 buy just came in, but $100,000 goes straight to our liquidity. So it's moving the chart and bulking up our liquidity to market cap ratio as well. So that's something that's unique. And since the migration of BSC, both of our contracts had that function in there.
Hoppy, you want to hop in here?
Yo. Yeah, first off, thanks for having me on. Yeah, so I just wanted to take a look at the chart here and like circulating supply. So you guys are at about 60%. Where's the other 40% coming from the supply?
Are you looking at CoinMarketCap?
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got about 1.1 trillion tokens in supply or in circulation. Yeah, so the top two wallets on chain is treasury wallets. So those are used originally in the very beginning. Those were used for exchanges. And anytime I did buybacks on the chart, those tokens would go to the staking contracts, because in the very beginning when we offered staking, I bought all the tokens on the chart and then fed those into the staking supply. But our reserve of tokens, which is what you see on chain, that goes to maintenance of the exchanges, and also, anything that might require tokens. If we decide to do a giveaway, which we have not currently done, tokens would come from the treasury. But listing of new exchanges, obviously we pay for our listings, so you have to maintain those exchanges with USDT and token supply. And obviously after you're listed, you have to maintain your contractual ratios. So the remainder of everything, to answer your question, is in treasury, also on exchanges, and holders.
Awesome. Perfect. Second question. Did you guys see a little bit of pumpage during the Pepe movement when we were, in that phase?
Dane, I don't recall. Did we see anything during that
Oh, of
time?
course. Well, we've gone up and down with the market. Being in DeFi, we don't traditionally move with anything necessarily in the macro, because we're sort of in our own world, which is good and bad. And sometimes, people will see Bitcoin pump, and they're like, "Well, why isn't it pumping?" And then other times Bitcoin will be dumping and we're pumping. So it can be both good and bad depending on how you look at it. But Pepe was a unique phenomenon. It sort of absorbed a lot of the market. To answer your question, honestly, I don't think we moved with Pepe when that happened, but Pepe did present sort of a new unique phenomenon, which is where these bots and these meth bots, as they're called, were buying charts with 0% tax and creating this abnormal amount of volume on chain.
Yeah.
And when that happened, all these exchanges essentially would pick these projects up and just list them, and it would create this mad scramble to try to catch these projects on their way up. That's sort of toned down at this point. Exchanges got smart to it, and traders have as well. So you're not really seeing the Pepe phenomenon with just a meme and no utility launch up so much no more. Although we do see some craziness with Grok right now, and others like that. But it's different, because being in DeFi, you sort of you chart your own course. So Pepe charted their own course. That's what we're doing now. And I think that we most likely will follow more so along traditional macro and really ramp up as things heat up, but we're not stopping trying right now either. So, yeah, good question.
Yeah, the reason why I asked that is there was because I saw Pepe day one, day two, and I faded it sadly. But then
I
after,
faded it. I faded it at 300K market cap myself.
yeah, no, I saw it under 100K. But anyways, I saw it, faded it, boom, shit's done. But going forward, what happened was there was a meme coin season. That's why I asked you, because it was during like the thick of the bear market, just right at a switching point where we're starting to see liquidity come into the market from the crypto space. So I was asking for that reason, firstly, but then another question I have as well too. So you guys have a lot of utility being built in, different ideas, things that are soon to be launching. So you guys expect because I understand that you guys have been doing a decent amount of marketing. My first exposure to you guys was through the Next Crypto Gem. So Brian and Jed are close friends of mine in Hourglass. So that my first exposure to you guys was actually through the commercials that you guys did for their television show. And so I understand that you guys have been focusing a lot on marketing as well too. Do you guys feel like your community growth and your market cap growth will be affected substantially from the utility basis, or is it just you guys are looking to launch things before the bull market comes to build more community and add more for the users? What's your goals for getting your market cap up? Because right now, like, you guys are it's still a pretty decent position. If people are interested, there's an entry point right now. It's under, I think I was listed on CoinMarketCap fully diluted as 18 million. So it's still, lots of space to grow, lots of room to grow. But what do you feel like is going to help your guys' project do the X's that it needs to do? Is it the combination of the injection of marketing that you guys have been doing over the past 6 months, or that launching these utilities that are going to get people excited? What do you feel?
I really think, well, first of all, I want to say shout out to Brian Evans. He's a very solid guy. I had the pleasure of meeting him in person. He was one of the very first people that I actually doxed to and face to face. So Brian Evans is a very solid guy. Shout out to him.
He's a good bro. He's a good bro of mine. Yeah.
Yeah, he definitely is. Happy to hear that, the next crypto gym sponsorship, actually has done something as far as putting eyes on us. That was a very cool and unique, situation that we got involved in. But to answer your question, I think it's going to be a combination of our marketing and our utilities. Obviously, the goal and the plan here is to finish up our development in the bear. We were conceptualized in the thick of the bear market. We hit our all-time high in the bear market when everything else was plummeting. We were pumping to, I think our all-time high was about 52 million. But I really think that these utilities that we have coming out with, the couple that I have named and the couple that we are still developing on right now, I think utility is really what's going to run it home. Because from a community member standpoint, with the utilities that we have we're working on, we're putting out there, when you realize that percentages of all revenue generated from these utilities are benefiting you as a community member in the form of buybacks or liquidity injections, and assuming that our utilities start catching on, it's going to be a reoccurring occurrence where we're going to essentially be pumping your bag. You can buy in today, and then a buyback from the revenue generated is going to come next week, and they're going to pump your position, and it's just going to be a recurring thing. So it's not going to really matter if people are pulling profit, which we encourage people to pull profit respectfully. Always think of your fellow community members. Obviously, we're in the space to make money, so there's no harm in that. But I think something that's unique with us is, when it comes to our utilities, percentages are coming back to our community. So it's not just a take mentality from the project. It's actually, we're going to be splitting it up, with the community and the project as well. So I think, that can generate substantial hype for us. And I also think the utilities that we have coming out are quality, and I think that will attract eyes as well. I will say that every utility that we have coming out is not branded as SquidGrow. You'll notice that all of our utilities, although they might have some kind of reference to a squid in some way, shape, or form, like Incubate, for example, all of our utilities are going to be branded as their own. So we will hold intellectual property and trademarks on all of our utilities. And the reason why we did that is, for example, if you're a Dogecoin guy or a Shiba guy, you're not going to come to a SquidGrow marketplace to buy and trade NFTs because you might see SquidGrow as another competitor in the space. So branding it neutrally, I think, is smart because it's its own entity, and it's kind of a standalone thing. Obviously, it's a creation, it's our brainchild coming from us, but it's branded separately. So I think that was a very smart move on our behalf. But I think the utilities we have coming out is going to definitely put eyes on us and put us on the map. Meme coins, they have their place, and they put up crazy numbers, but I think the utility is going to be the longevity of the project.
Yeah, just to talk on meme coins right now, and I appreciate your response. So, I'm pretty close with, I'm actually really, really close with Jordan Charters. He's the CEO for PolyDoge, and they launched the Dogecoin on Polygon, and they actually went over, I think their market cap in the bull market tops was like 125 mil, and they did really well as a meme coin. They're still around, pumping out utility, running one of the biggest online metaverse conference for Polygon in the space. He was able to, interview Sandeep on Twitter Spaces, the founder for Polygon. So there's a lot of relevance in regards to the ability that meme coins can have when there is actual longevity and utility built into it. And I find that the utility basis in meme coins is actually can be similar to NFT projects as well too, in regards to being about community, right? Really actually having a strong force, a group of people that are united to push out an intention, right? And the intention can be actually portrayed in the imagery of the meme coin itself. So for example, if whatever your intentionality is as a meme token. So I think just for, reference for everybody that's here, like meme tokens have a place in regards to reaching cultural gaps. So they can, a lot of people have heard about crypto for the first time through Doge, right? And through Doge, they got some exposure to crypto and, maybe started to find their way in the space for the first time and started to learn about DeFi or Bitcoin or, halving or read the Bitcoin paper or white paper or any of those things, right? So that's the power of the meme power that's possible. Of course, 99% of meme tokens are shit, but there's some that are there that have longevity and that actually have teams behind them that are willing to fund and put in a lot of work to make sure there's longevity and community being built. So I just wanted to reference that as well too, because I have a decent amount of exposure to those guys in Polygon, and I know that there is some standouts that have created a lot of cultural reference, and also have worked as an onboarding agent for people to come into the crypto space and hopefully not get too bashed around and too wrecked in the space, where they would stick around and be a part of the space. So as well too, I'm looking at your guys' website. I see, you got some relationships with the Dogecoin millionaire, UFC fighters as well too, Daniel Rodriguez, and obviously Wendy O was here before as well too. So you guys are setting yourselves up in a good way, building during the bear market to come into a bull market with proper utility. So you guys are setting yourself up in a really good way to succeed, and good for you, Shib. You funded everything. You've got in a really good position in this market with meme tokens, and now you're pushing yourself through. So I just wanted to share some of those things, because meme tokens get a lot of shit, and they should. But when you find good ones come through that actually have a team that are not just going to rug the shit and are going to stick around and put in effort, and I'm sure Shib, I'm seeing these different KOLs and the team that you have, and as well as the utilities that you're building out, that you probably spent a pretty penny on development already and probably haven't made any money yet. So congrats to that. Just wanted to bring up all those things to make sure that people are aware.
Yeah, I
Well said.
appreciate that. Yeah, we're not revenue generating at this point, but when you get a chance, have a look at our Surtech dashboard. I'd love some feedback on that, but I'm pretty happy with our current standing on Surtech. Obviously that's just one auditing company. Our main contract does have multiple audits on it. I like to say our audits have audits, but Surtech is definitely our heaviest hitting auditing company that we have, and we have a great relationship with them. But
Well,
slowly but surely,
there's a
go ahead.
difference between being a rug and a slow rug. So even with all the I think it's phenomenal that you have all the Surtech and all the backing and all of those things there, because it's absolutely essential that there's no back doors or any of those things. But
Mhm.
that doesn't stop from slow rugs, right? And slow
Correct.
rugs is just team giving up, right? And
Yeah.
obviously, you're in a position where you've made some wealth for yourself and you care about this enough, and you're showing based off of some relevance in regards to your family and friends wanting to be a part of the crypto space and not get, fucked around too much with. Those are some major data points for people to see, if they want to get exposure to meme tokens and want to get into something that has a relatively low market cap currently that can see some substantial growth. Pepe went over 1 billion. These guys are sitting at it fully diluted under 20 million, right? So I wanted to bring up those points so people can kind of just dig their teeth into that a little bit more and see the importance of that. Because I don't, I don't invest in meme coins very often, but for example, Polydoge, I have over there because I know them and they've been building for 3 years now, from 125 mil down to 4 million market cap right now. You know what I
Mm.
mean? So that's the big difference with some of these projects, is actually getting to know the people and seeing what they're made of, because you can have utility, that's super important. You can have use case, you can have those type of things, but also the founders, the CEOs, the people that are running the show. These are all very important data points to look at for investing into projects specifically. So, I mean, at some point we should connect. I'd love to talk to you a little bit more outside of this, and just learn a little bit more about you as a person as well too, and the team. And that would give me a lot of, that would give me a lot of assurance going forward. But looks good to me so far.
Yeah, absolutely. My inbox is always open. We're extremely accessible. We're always taking questions, so just feel free to DM me at your convenience, and we can chat.
Yeah, to your point, Pop, you brought up a lot of great points, man. Kudos for bringing all that up. I could go respond to you for probably 10 minutes on that. I think that the team itself, and specifically Shibtoshi, a lot of the reason why people follow him, of course, the story and the lore of Satoshi and who he is as a trader and where he came from and his capital is amazing. But we've seen it firsthand as a community for the past year and a half. Him never stopping, like a true passion and obsession for the project, as you say, because you can only market a pump for so long. I don't care if it's Pepe or Grok or whatever. Eventually, it stops pumping, and then once it stops pumping, that's where you're really tested, especially in crypto when the macro turns on you. And a lot of these projects just give up, as you say, or slow rug. But we've not done that. We actually were born in some of those brutal times of this market, and it didn't stop us. We've been going ever since, and I believe that we'll be going through the next bear market. And that's what keeps you going, as Satoshi said, is the utilities, is the value proposition that the project brings, because you can only market nothing for so long. Like how many exchanges and chart bullishness can you market before eventually it turns, and then what do you do? So I think at that point most projects run away, but we've run to that many times. We've been through a lot of different points in this market already, and it hasn't deterred us. Right now being one of them. I believe this project should be well higher than it is, but it doesn't stop us because we know what we're doing, we know what we're building, we know what we have, and our team has a diehard obsession and passion to make this thing very special. So we will continue to do just that.
Well, I'll definitely say that I will reach out. I'm currently building my advisory right now. I finished up a contract on BSC building out this like AI project, and now I'm basically just starting my own advisory. And you know what? It's really interesting. When you find a team that actually gives a shit about their community and has the ability and the runway to develop maybe just slowly but surely different utilities and prepare themselves, and you don't have to focus so much, say for example on the 4-year cycles, because you have a little bit of capital to work with and you have a dedicated team and those type of things. Because most projects in the space, whether they're NFT projects, crypto token projects, any of those things, they actually have to fundraise to actually develop anything at all. They don't have any capital to start with, which is another data point that I'm sure Wolf and other investors will agree with. If you look at an organization and they already have a runway without going out to the public to ask for money, that's a pretty substantial thing. So there's a lot of check marks. There's a lot of green check marks here to a positive investment point. So yeah, I would definitely love to talk with you guys more and see how there could be some type of help on either side. But that's checked off a lot of points for me, and I appreciate you guys listening and answering my questions, and it's been a great conversation.
Looking forward to your message, buddy. Appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
Jump in here, action.
Yeah, appreciate Poppy, bro. Like, awesome. The insight that comes from you is always incredible. But I heard about you guys as well because of the next crypto jam, but mine wasn't from Brian this time around. It was actually from George. So
Okay.
yeah, I was hanging out with him down in Florida for a little while, and then yeah, the guys definitely came up. So here's a question that I did not catch early on. Did you guys promise anything? Because what I love about meme tokens is that they don't promise anything to anybody. What was your
Yeah.
pitch to the community?
Perfect. We have the creed in our project that under promise over deliver. So we don't give timelines. We don't have the typical roadmaps. When our utilities come to a certain stage after proof of concept and we are comfortable and confident that we'll actually be able to deliver on it at some point, we will then talk to the community about it and kind of tease it and then put it out there fully. But we've not made any promises. We don't make promises at SquidGrow. We under promise over deliver.
I'll never make a promise that I can't keep. Not to quote the song or anything, but that's what it sounded like. Now I'm going to ask you a question, really important. Are you going to sell when it does pump? Because I mean, show's right around the corner. There's a ton of things that are going to get launched. This is definitely, in my view, going to take off a bit. It doesn't matter how much, it's still going to take off.
Yep.
Are you going to sell?
Am I personally going to sell?
Yeah.
Everything that I have ever put into the chart goes to the treasury. So when my buybacks come in, they have ranged anywhere from low amounts to hundreds of thousands of dollars. I buy back from the treasury, and we will definitely not be selling. So the longevity of the project, how I will pay myself back from everything I put in through this, is going to be the revenue generation from our utilities. So going into this, I knew it was going to be very costly. and it would be some length of time before I was even going to be able to recover anything I put into it. But there's no need to sell. With the utilities that we have coming out, I really strongly believe that there's going to be strong revenue coming through the project, and I'll be able to pay myself back at that point.
Got it. So your avenue for cashing out is not selling the token itself, but through all the other
Absolutely
things
not.
that you're building.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Most people don't do that. Most people just wait till it tops out and sells a bunch of stuff, and then it plummets back down, and they promise more things to bring it back up.
Yeah, there's numerous projects that do that on the space, and it's really shitty because you're crapping all over your investors. You preach one thing, and at the same time you're kind of reaching around and taking money from them. It's very dishonest. We've been very transparent with any obstacle or anything we've ever faced in the project, and we've had a couple of them through the duration of time that we've been around. But yeah, that's not going to happen at all. Revenue generation from the utilities that we have coming out is more than enough. I truly believe with some of the stuff that we have coming out is going to be very high return on investment for us.
Yeah, I second that, Shib. And you bring up an unfortunate point to many of these meme coins that we spoke on previously, and that is the dark side to them is the fact that when they launched, oftentimes the creators of these projects are just normal dudes that got together with a group of friends and that basically just bought their own token all the way up. And then it catches traction. They do some marketing. They list on exchanges, and eventually they get to a certain exchange. They wash dump all their tokens on the investors, and the project dies. And unfortunately, that's been an ugly cloud over the meme space, and this year in particular. It's always sort of been there to a degree, but I think it was really highlighted by some of the projects we spoke on, where these project leaders would buy early and then just dump all over their investors in the end. That's not something that any of us worry about here at SquidGrow because Satoshi is a different beast. If you look into that trade he made with Shiba, none of these guys did that. None of these guys have been in Bitcoin since 2011 and are also a Bitcoin whale. Satoshi is. So, I always say we have an X factor with Satoshi as our CEO, and the fact that he doesn't need to go and wax all his investors when he gets to a certain point is an incredible point of inspiration, I think, for all of us here, because it gives us a lot of security knowing that we're with a leader that has the projects, on a pedestal as far as what he wants to do with it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate Wolf bringing you guys on because I'll tell you that goes a long way into space. It's not only that he's been around for a while, is that he's willing to put his name behind it as well. Like that, I mean, that just speaks volumes.
Love it, guys. We are coming up on time here. Been a pleasure having y'all on. Certainly one of the more active AMAs. Poppy, Dave, Action, you guys are all great to have on, as well as hearing from the team up here. Let me give the team some final comments. Shibtoshi, anything else you wanted to put in front of any people? Any call to actions here?
Well, Dane, Dub, before we get into that, do we want to drop what we had spoken about?
That's up to you, Shib. What do you think, Dane?
Yeah, I think it's good. We got 200 plus people here listening. If you don't mind, real quick, Wolf, we'll drop here an alpha on your space, and also just some closing thoughts beyond that.
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the most recent utilities that we have been developing now, although we are still working on a proof of concept for this, we are going to be coming out with a privacy cross-chain aggregator that utilizes a privacy coin. We are playing around with two privacy coins, Privacy Coin and also Monero. So we will be coming out with a privacy cross-chain aggregator. Privacy is very important to me, and I think anybody in this space cannot stand being tracked from wallet to wallet. It's kind of annoying. You have to deal with the dusting and the NFT airdrops that, if you accidentally click on something or move something around, you can essentially lose your funds. So privacy is very near and dear to me, and one of the utilities that we are currently developing is a privacy cross-chain aggregator. It is now, I can't say which option we're going to go with, if we're going to go with the privacy coin or the Monero, but the difference between us and some of the competitors with this privacy cross-chain aggregator is we are going to be completely decentralized. So it's not going to be dependent on any exchanges. We're not going to be utilizing any exchanges APIs. It's completely decentralized.
Love it. Ardub, anything you want to add on to that, or Dane?
No, I think you covered that well there, Shib. I just wanted to say in closing comments, yeah, it's been a really nice space. Actually, we've been on, a number of different big spaces in the past, and lots of times, people can be pretty hard and like critical of certain coins, especially meme coins. So it's been really refreshing to have you guys and kind of hear your guys' input on this part of the space as well. So appreciate that and thank you very much.
Thank you, R Dub. Dane, any final comments here from yourself?
Yeah, it's been, I echo that fully. It's been a pleasure, Wolf, to finally connect with you, and I hope we can do it again at some point in the near future. I will say two things just in regards to closing out SquidGrow. I did have the chance to personally meet Shibtoshi recently, along with our core team. That was incredible. Back in October, we got together at the SquidGrow compound, we call it, and we actually hung out for 4 days and basically got things done, all being in the same time zone. We flew from around the world to that one spot, coming from Australia, New Zealand, Canada, US, you name it, all to meet up and work as a team in person. And I think that's something that you don't typically see in crypto, especially in DeFi projects actually meeting up, getting together, doxing to themselves. So that right there to me really solidified everything we've been working for the past year and a half, actually getting to meet these guys in person. And on that note, because of that, I think that we will actually start to establish more of an in-person presence, perhaps at future conventions as things heat back up. So that will be exciting. And then, we do have a Bitcoin giveaway going on right now. It's part of the Squid Game challenge. We did do our own little challenge in our chat and our Telegram specifically, where we're giving away a Bitcoin. So if you are interested in that, make sure you stop by our Telegram, because it's actually pretty easy to get your name in that mix, and you have pretty solid odds at winning compared to a lot of things in this world. So very cool. I just wanted to highlight that. But that's it for me. Thanks again, Wolf.
Perfect.
Yeah,
And someone, oh, yeah,
definitely.
go for it.
Sorry. No, I was just going to say, yeah, it was definitely important to get the team under one roof. We've been working together for the duration of the project, and you know, obviously, not having the ability to sit down with one another and just kind of talk over the space or over the phone, it's different than shaking somebody's hands and looking at them in the eye. So for me, it was very important to actually meet everybody firsthand, face to face, and kind of get a vibe of who is working for the project. And I can't say enough that everybody that we have on the core team and affiliated with this are very solid. We had everybody out there. There was two team members that could not make it, but we even had Wendy come out, Slum Doge, D Rod, the UFC fighter, and the rest of the core team. So it was very SquidGrow focused, and it was definitely a good time, and it was a very important thing to myself. And on the Bitcoin giveaway, this isn't a LARP. This isn't some kind of scam thing. I know everybody hears, oh, one Bitcoin giveaway. It's got to be this. It's got to be that. Now, I have a decent amount of Bitcoin holdings, and we are giving away one whole Bitcoin. We do have an affiliate program with that. So if you happen to refer the winner of the Bitcoin, you will win one Ethereum as well. Assuming that the person, when they fill out their form, they put you down as the referrer. So that is ongoing. We do not have a conclusion date on that, but it will be relatively near to us. So with that said, Wolf, everybody that's come out and asked questions, and everybody listening, thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for allowing me the opportunity to get up here and talk about our community and our project.
Thank you. I'm glad you guys hit on the giveaway. People were DMing me about that. That is going to do it for tonight's Spaces. What a day. Did around 11 hours on Spaces. Yeah, we're actually right at 11 hours here. So that is going to do it for this. Thank you to everyone that tuned in. Hope you had a good time. Seems like there was a lot of interest here. I was getting DMs, people commenting all day. If you were interested, of course, go follow the accounts that are up here. Make sure to follow up from the space. And yeah, hopefully we'll be able to connect again soon, Dane, Shibtoshi, and then the rest of the team, our dub. And then big thank you to my guys, Action, Dave, and Poppy, stalwarts on the Spaces scene. Definitely people worth checking out. All right. That is going to do it for this one. Thank you again, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your Monday night. Tomorrow, it's going to be a Spaces party. I'm going to be on Spaces from 9:15 a.m. Eastern straight, no breaks, till 5 p.m. Eastern, and then I'll get back on at 5:45 p.m. Eastern for another 2 hours. So you can catch me for about 10 more hours on Spaces tomorrow. Looking forward to having everyone there. Take care. Have a good night.
Thank you, Wolf. Thank you, guys.
Beast mode.
Take care, everybody.